Chapter 1163. Today's fourth chapter. Making Up for the Debt, Chapter 15. Finally finished. I'm so tired. At this moment, Jun Moxie's face was as pale as a corpse's. Fresh blood was still flowing out from the corner of his mouth. Mei Shuiyin cried out in shock, looking at Jun Moxie with a pained expression. She felt as if her heart was being overturned by a tsunami. Others might not know, but how could Mei Shuiyin, who had also cultivated the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, not understand? This sort of extreme output was not something Jun Moxie could achieve with his current strength. But if he didn't do this, he would not be able to get justice for his brother. At the very least, it would be difficult to get justice completely. For the sake of his brother's justice, for the sake of letting his brother rest in peace, Jun Moxie decisively unleashed a power that he could not endure. Even with the protection of the Hongjun Pagoda, his meridians and mind were still suffering from an abnormally intense backlash. If he maintained the state of merging with the Hongjun Pagoda, he would naturally be fine. But the moment he appeared, he could only use his own body to face all this pain. But he had no choice but to come out. Because he had to vent this anger. And also because his brother could not die in vain. The price was right in front of him. Justice was within this patch of flame of primal chaos. He had to settle this debt of gratitude and vengeance. Yes, it was to settle this debt of gratitude and vengeance. My brother's death must be a heroic death. Then my revenge, regardless of whether my brother is dead or alive, must let them all feel at ease. How my brother died, whoever caused this debt, whether it was directly or indirectly, must pay it back. At this time, the flame of primal chaos was already at the same level as the ground, completely covering the huge essence of ice. Those that were above the pit just floated down, still as slow as ever. But the flame of primal chaos that had already landed on the ground also continued to fall at the same speed. Everything on the ground, whether it was a huge rock or a thick layer of soil, as long as it came into contact with the flame of primal chaos, it would be instantly incinerated into nothingness. Seeing the flame of primal chaos slowly descend and the lives of his 40 brothers in danger, Xia Changtian's eyes were about to pop out. With a quick step, he appeared in front of Jun Moxie and roared, "Jun Moxie, hurry up and retract that will-o-wisp. Let my brothers out." His voice was no longer as arrogant as it was before. It was hoarse and the corners of his eyes were torn from anxiety. 2 streams of blood flowed down from the corners of his eyes and his face was as mournful as a ghost's. "Xiaonan, Lord Saint Monarch Xia, are you anxious now? Take it easy, take it easy. Look at the sky." Jun Moxie smiled gently and wiped the blood off the corner of his mouth. Then, he stretched out a bloody finger and pointed at the hollow where the chaotic flame had fallen. He said with great interest, "Look carefully. Isn't this hollow different from other places? Very pure, right?" Xia Changtian looked up and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The vast area that the primal chaos flame passed through had already become a spatial black hole. The spiritual qi in the air from all directions was rushing toward this direction at high speed, slowly repairing this space on its own. The flame of primal chaos actually burned the real world. If that kind of terrifying power really spread to flesh and blood, Xiangqian's face turned even paler, and his body swayed unsteadily. "What do you want? Only then will you release them? State your conditions. No matter what they are, I will agree to them." Xia Changtian glared at Jun Moxie viciously. "Conditions? If I had come a step earlier and not meddled in the affairs of some other people, I think I would have asked you as anxiously as you." Jun Xie looked at him emotionlessly. "What do you want, in order to save my brother?" In the distance, the faces of the people from Heaven's Saint Palace and the 3 Holy Lands instantly turned pale. If Jun Moxie had not interfered in the battle against Samsara, with his strange abilities, he would definitely be able to rewrite the numbers of casualties on Tian Fa's side. Were they also indirectly accomplices to him? But if Jun Moxie had not interfered, how many of Gu Han and the rest would be left? That was something that no one could say for sure. Compared to Gu Han and the rest, Xia Changtian's condition was even worse. His chest felt like it had been struck by lightning, and his face was pale as he stumbled back a few steps. All the reasons, all the expectations, all the reasons, all the expectations were utterly defeated by Jun Mo Xie's simple rhetorical question. But they are my brothers ah. Xia Changtian clutched his chest and howled. Let my brothers go. Let my brothers go. Jun Moxie's white robes fluttered as he stood in the air. His hair fluttered in the wind, exuding a ruthless aura. His eyes were cold and filled with satisfaction as he looked at Xia Chang'an. Do you feel very uncomfortable in your heart? That's right, this is exactly the feeling I had earlier. When I heard that the Eagle King had died, the feeling in my heart was exactly the same as yours. It's really the same. Jun Moxie's lips curled into a pitiful smile. It was the kind of smile that came from forcefully suppressing the pain in his heart. Xia Changtian, Saint Monarch Xia, right now, the two of us can be considered to be in the same boat. Since we're all in the same boat, why don't we have a toast as we watch these people die? Ji Bo Wen flew over like he was flying. Second brother Xia, there's not much time left. His tone was filled with pain, and even his voice was filled with the stench of blood. That was the blood of an anxious heart. Xia Changtian's eyes stared listlessly at the huge pit. Hearing the panicked screams coming from within, he felt as if his heart was being torn apart. The people below had already discovered the terror of the flame of primal chaos. Because that terrifying flame had descended just like that, burning everything in its path. It was graceful and elegant, like a monarch descending upon the world. However, that terrifying murderous intent caused everyone's heart to be filled with extreme fear. Xia Changtian's heart was already filled with regret. If he had known it would be like this, why did he do it in the first place? Back then, as long as he gave the order, they would come out to receive him. Then, those 8 Saint Venerables of Tian Fa would definitely not die. Eagle King would also not die. With the intervention of the heaven-seizing army, the casualties of Tian Fa's allied forces would not exceed 1,000 people. Everything would be avoided. But he had insisted on watching coldly from the sidelines, and did not give the order. Watching those soldiers die in battle without lifting a finger, and even felt that it was a feast for the eyes. Now, retribution had come. Right now, it was their turn to feel a feast for the eyes. Jun Moxie, state your conditions? Xia Changtian's entire body trembled. What do you want me to do in order to let my brothers off? Conditions? What conditions? There's no need, no need. A hero of humanity like you, the savior of the continent, with unparalleled achievements, who would dare to raise conditions with you. There's no need to do anything. You can just watch coldly from the sidelines. Jun Moxie said indifferently, don't you like to watch coldly from the sidelines? Isn't this what you're best at? Right now, there's no need to do anything. You just need to display your best skills once more. The only thing is that the time you can watch from the sidelines is shorter this time. It will be over in just a moment. Just a moment more, and everything will be over. Jun Moxie grinned. Come. In order to express my apologies, this seat will accompany you to watch. Watching the brothers that you've been with day and night slowly burn, leaving only their bones. Oh no, this seat misspoke. How would there be any bones left? Those bones will also turn into nothingness. In fact, it's not just their bones. Even their souls will be burned into nothingness. I can even guarantee that they won't even have the chance to reincarnate. The so-called cultivation of thousands of years will be turned into nothingness in a single day. Not even ashes will be left. How pleasurable is that? Us Tian Fa brothers and I were fortunate enough to experience it once just now. And now, because of you, we've been able to enjoy it once more. As the saying goes, give a plum in return for a peach. How can we miss out on such a good thing like this? How can we miss out on all of you who are compassionate heroes, the saviors of mankind? And come, I'll also let you enjoy a little. Enjoy a little? Xia Changtian glared at Jun Moxie and said with grief and indignation. Jun Moxie, you have a good appearance, but you don't have the slightest bit of humanity. You're a beast. No wonder you've abandoned yourself to become companions with a bunch of wild beasts. So you've only realized it now? But I don't think that I've abandoned myself to depravity. To be able to be companions with Tian Fa Xian beasts with a pure and innocent heart is the most fortunate thing in my life. Jun Moxie laughed coldly. If I were to possess a great humanity like you, that would be the greatest humiliation to me, Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie, Ji Bo-wen roared. These people were heroes who guarded the pillar of heaven's mountains for the safety of the entire human race. Some of them hadn't even taken a step down the mountain for thousands of years. They dedicated their entire lives to the war for seizing the heavens, to the entire Xian continent. And you actually want to kill all of them just like that? I've never denied that they were heroes. Nor did I deny the contributions they'd once made to this continent. Jun Moxie replied in a gloomy manner, but heroes also have to die. When heroes do something wrong, they have to pay the price. Don't think that just because you're a hero, others have to follow your lead. Let me tell you, in this world, no one owes you anything. My brothers and I don't owe you anything either. Since you've caused the deaths of my brothers, you must pay the price. Not to mention heroes, even if you're a saint, a savior, you'll have to pay a corresponding price for your actions. This is fairness. This is the justice that I'm going to seek. If the heavens don't give me justice, I'll seek it myself. If the earth doesn't give me justice, I'll fight for it myself. If you guys don't give me an explanation, I'll seek it myself. If there's no explanation for the human world, then just wait for destruction. Ha! Jun Moxie raised his head to the sky and laughed. Pointing his finger, he said, even if this beautiful world is destroyed, so what? In this universe, how many worlds like this are there? Who's right? Who's wrong? The principles here might not be the same as what other worlds view as treason and heresy. The justice here might be despicable things in other worlds. But the affection between brothers, no matter which world it is, will always be the same, eternal and unchanging. Just like you guys, just like us. Jun Moxie said heavily. Right now, we're enemies, only one of us can live. If your brothers die, you'll be sad. If our brothers die, we'll also be sad. Joy alone is not as good as joy together. You make me sad, how can I not make you sad? An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, no matter where it's placed, it's the truth. It's eternal. It's been a long time since I've asked for monthly votes. I've forgotten what it feels like. At 3:30 in the morning, I'll ask for a monthly vote. Chapter 1164. I originally didn't want to speak so much nonsense with you guys, but if I don't say it, I'll be unhappy. I'll talk about my pleasure, and seeing you guys unhappy, that's the true pleasure. Only like this can my brothers in the netherworld go on their way peacefully. Jun Moxie laughed maniacally and roared, perhaps this is the so-called cycle of the heavens. Retribution is unsatisfying. Xia Chang Tian's face turned completely malevolent. There's no more hope. Everything is a foregone conclusion. This evil monarch will definitely not compromise. He's already said all sorts of good things, but this evil monarch is still unmoved. No, he's not unmoved at all. He was simply enjoying the extreme pleasure of revenge, watching her suffer, watching her heart wrench in pain, to enjoy her pain. Although the pit was deep, the flame of primal chaos had already fallen in. Even if it's moving slowly, it will eventually reach its destination. The death of those brothers is already a foregone conclusion. Jun Moxie, have you ever thought about what kind of price you'll have to pay if these brothers of mine really die? Xia Chang Tian's face was contorted, and a cruel light shone from his eyes. He was on the verge of losing control. Price? I've never thought about it. Jun Moxie's eyes narrowed. What kind of price do you think you can make me pay with just the few of you? If all my brothers die, then this old man can guarantee the lives of the Tian Fa Alliance army here. Xia Chang Tian's voice was filled with killing intent. Not a single one of them will live. Jun Moxie's eyes narrowed. He looked at Xia Chang Tian and said slowly, word by word, as long as you dare to behave atrociously, I'll accompany you to the end. He slowly raised his eyelids, and his sharp gaze swept across the battlefield. Xia Chang Tian, if you dare to kill me today, I'll kill 100 of you. If you kill the 3 of us, I'll make the 3 holy lands go extinct. I'll wait for you, Xia Chang Tian. As long as you have the guts to make a move, Jun Moxie, will not be an easy target. The two of them stared at each other fiercely. Their gazes seemed to have created exceptionally intense sparks in the air. Xia Chang Tian's eyes were filled with grief, despair, and even a hint of hysteria. As for Jun Moxie, his eyes had been stimulated by Xia Chang Tian's words to the point of complete insanity. However, Xia Chang Tian's eyes still carried a trace of apprehension. Yes, he was still worried about the war for seizing the heavens. Worried about the entire world. If it was just the battle between him and Jun Moxie, it could be said that it was a battle of pride. It didn't affect the overall situation. This was also the biggest reason why Jun Moxie insisted on facing the 47 of them alone. Because the moment Mei Shuiyan and the rest made a move, it would mean that the three holy lands, Tian Fa, and the evil Monarch Manor would completely fall out with each other. Jun Moxie also couldn't afford such a responsibility. Jun Moxie had a thought. If he and his brothers could not avoid death, then he would rather die fighting against the strange races than let them die in the hands of the three holy lands. Because it wasn't worth it. Xia Chang Tian's apprehension was even more complicated than Jun Moxie's. If he really fought with Jun Moxie today, and even implicated the three holy lands and Tian Fa forest, then there wouldn't even be a need to fight this battle against the strange races. They would definitely lose. Then he, Xia Chang Tian, would be the sinner of the entire human race. Xia Chang Tian had protected the continent for 3,000 years, and this responsibility had long seeped into the depths of his soul. This glory had long seeped into his bloodline. He valued honor and reputation above everything else. How could he bear the name of the sinner of the continent for no reason? Xia Chang Tian had apprehensions, but Jun Moxie didn't. Destruction of the continent? If it's destroyed, then let it be destroyed. In any case, the conflict between you three holy lands has nothing to do with me. Even if the continent is going to be destroyed because of this battle, I will not resign myself to death in your hands. At most, we'll be destroyed together. What's the big deal about that? If you don't want your life, then I can. Everyone only has one head, and no one has an extra egg. Trying to scare me? Threaten me? Your granny. Xia Chang Tian, didn't you promise? Why aren't you taking action? I'm waiting for you to take action. Jun Moxie looked at him coldly. Don't tell me that you only know how to promise with your mouth. Do you dare to make an oath? Kill over 10,000 of my brothers? Who do you think you are? Do you have the ability to do that? Where did you get the guts from? Xia Chang Tian finally went completely berserk. With a loud roar, he screamed, Jun Emosia. You're the one who forced me to do this. His gaze turned and landed on Mei Shuiyan, Bear Mountain, and the rest who were watching from the other side. His eyes flashed with an ominous glint. Obviously, he would take action at any moment. Jun Moxie roared and his body disappeared. In the blink of an eye, he appeared again. But in that instant, his aura had already undergone an earth-shattering change. His aura was majestic and domineering. In the eyes of everyone, Jun Moxie's head reached the heavens, and his feet stepped on the ground. This body of his was the world itself. Jun Moxie took a step forward. Just one step. It was just one step. Ripples seemed to appear in the space between the heavens and the earth. At this moment, everyone could see that even the mountains had been distorted for a moment. It had turned into a strange shape. The space trembled, and the airflow became unstable. The entire world was warped. This was what caused everyone's eyes to see. Even in the eyes of Gu Han, Xia Chang Tian, and Ji Bo Wen, these experts were no exception. The entire world trembled violently. Gu Han's face changed. Raising his head in horror, he looked at Jun Moxie who was approaching Xia Chang Tian step by step. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Xia Chang Tian and Ji Bo Wen, the two Saint Monarchs, also had a change in expression. The two of them felt the boundless pressure of heaven and earth pressing down on them with this step of Jun Moxie's. All the energy of heaven and earth gathered at this spot. The two of them involuntarily took a step back. As the two of them had already mobilized all the profound energy in their bodies in order to resist against this sudden terrifying pressure, this unconsciously retreating step actually caused a boom sound as it stomped a deep hole in the ground. Jun Moxie laughed coldly. Xia Changtian, I'll tell you the truth. Even without your earlier threat, you were destined to die today. You are the main culprit behind the deaths of my brothers. The reason why I spoke so much nonsense with you was to let you have a taste of your brothers dying in front of you. Alright, don't say that this young master killed your brothers. The real culprit behind their deaths is you. It's them. It's because of your decisions that led to today's ending. Now, I believe you've had enough of this feeling, right? Come, let this young master send you off. On the road to the Yellow Springs, remember, in your next life, don't make me unhappy. After fusing with the Hongjun Pagoda, the backlash was simply too severe. Especially after using the flame of primal chaos after fusing with the Hongjun Pagoda, fusing with it again was something that even Jun Moxie could not predict. But at the very least, his body and soul would be heavily injured. That was a fact that was set in stone. Now that the strange races were about to attack, Jun Moxie did not intend to be so ruthless. Not for himself, but because he was afraid that he would not be able to protect his brothers. They were all here because of a single order from him. How could Jun Moxie not be worried? How could he not take responsibility? How could he not be troubled? But Xia Changtian's threat had caused Jun Moxie to explode in anger. He actually dares to use my brothers to threaten me? If I don't kill him, I'll let down the heavens and earth, let down humanity, let down my brothers, and let down my own conscience. Then I'll kill him. His eyes shone with extreme madness as he roared. Then I'll destroy this world as well. Jun Moxie roared. The blood of Yellow Flame let out a sword cry and disappeared. In the next instant, it had already appeared in front of Ji Bowen. The sword's edge was cold and gleaming with a cold light. The sword light was unparalleled in the world. A single sword had actually blocked all the attacks of a Saint Monarch like Ji Bowen. One man and one sword, blocking two Saint Monarchs head-on in the most unyielding manner. The man was like the sword, and the sword was like the man. The same coldness, the same pride, the same sharpness. Xia Changtian chuckled coldly. Jun Mo Xia, this monarch is truly helpless against your underhanded tricks. But you actually want to face the two of us head-on with your strength alone? Should I laugh at your arrogance or overestimation of your capabilities? Jun Moxie, aren't you thinking too highly of yourself? Sneaky tricks can only be used for sneak attacks. In a head-on battle, you have to rely on your own abilities. Idiot. Jun Moxie had no intention of replying at all. With a thought, a 9 nether frost blade suddenly appeared in his hand. In an instant, this pitch-black 9 nether frost blade suddenly lit up. It emitted a breathtaking brilliance. It was a color darker than the darkness itself. It was as if a pure black flame had suddenly ignited in the air. Dark but glorious. Xia Changtian, I've already said it before. The main culprit behind the deaths of so many of my brothers is you. That's why I've gone through so much trouble to let you taste the pain of losing your brothers. Now that the foreplay is over, you can go and die now. Go and apologize to my brothers in the Yellow Springs. As soon as Jun Moxie finished speaking, he waved the blade in his hand and a black light instantly filled the sky. His entire body seemed to have transformed into an awe-inspiring sharp sword that could slice through the sky. Facing the Saint Monarch expert in front of him, he took the initiative to launch a brazen attack. On the other side, the peerless divine blade, the blood of Yellow Flame, also let out a shrill sword cry. Its light shone brightly, like a bolt of purple lightning streaking across the sky, piercing towards Ji Bowen. In reality, this was actually a duel between two opponents. Jun Moxie and the blood of Yellow Flame were two separate entities, each fighting on their own. There was no connection between them. But in the eyes of others, this scene was clearly a person controlling two swords. One wielding, the other manipulating. He was fighting against two Saint Monarchs at the same time. All the spectators sucked in a cold breath of air. Even the Tian Fa faction was no exception. This Jun Moxie was truly audacious. Chapter 1165. Today's second chapter. I'll continue to work overtime. On the other hand, the higher-ups of the three Holy Lands were also shocked but not too surprised. The day before, Jun Moxie had also used this method to fight the peak expert Jean Luen Hui alone, achieving a close combat result. Jean Luen Hui's strength was unfathomable and had already surpassed the limits of a human cultivator. Even the experts of Heaven's Saint Palace were unable to stop him. But Jun Moxie was actually able to stop him with his own strength and even gain the upper hand in the beginning of the battle. This kind of shocking strength was truly enough to shock the world. And this was also the reason why Gu Han had made the decision just now. Although Tian Fei had won a great battle, they had suffered heavy losses. 8 Saint Venerables had fallen, the Eagle King had been sacrificed, and they had lost 5,000 elites. Tian Fei's fighting strength was too great. Furthermore, the strength of the people in the war for seizing the Heavens camp was extremely impressive, and they were truly on the same side. If Jun Mo Xie had not displayed such strength before, even if Gu Han did not stand on Xia Chang Tian's side, he would only try to smooth things over and not make such a choice. Xia Chang Tian and Ji Bo Wen's faces were filled with grief and indignation as they struck out at the same time. Both of them had the same thought in their hearts: take down Jun Moxie as soon as possible. Only then would they be able to save their 40 brothers. The longer they took, the more dangerous the situation would be. The other 3 Saint Venerables and the 2 Holy Emperors who had managed to escape earlier stood at their original spots, not knowing what to do. They also wanted to join in the battle, but who should they fight against? Jun Moxie had already taken on everything by himself. Right now, he was using himself as a representative to seek justice, to take revenge and vent his anger. From start to end, no one else from Tian Fa spoke. Although they knew that this was Jun Moxie's original intention. But they still could not make a move against Mei Shuiyin and the rest. The moment they made a move, they would not be able to bear the consequences. They were not Saint Monarchs. They did not have that kind of status. In fact, even Xia Chang Tian might not dare to do so. He was just being ruthless earlier, but he didn't dare to really make a move against Tian Fa's people. It was not because of Jun Moxie's threat, but because of the bigger picture. The cause of this matter was because they had watched coldly from the sidelines and had no intention to help. In the end, it caused the Tian Fa Eagle and Bear army to be almost completely annihilated. As the leader, Jun Moxie had stood up to seek justice, and it was only right and proper. No one had anything to say, and even Gu Han could only try to smooth things over, but it was impossible for him to say anything. Even if Xia Chang Tian and his companion were to die in this battle, they could only blame themselves. No one could say anything. However, if the others were to swarm up and attack Jun Moxie, the nature of the situation would be completely different. If that was the case, even Gu Han would not allow it. Elder Gu, even if Saint Monarch Xia and the others didn't lend a hand, there's no need for us to fight to the death, right? Was Jun Moxie's reaction too extreme? He's completely ignoring the bigger picture. On the side of the 3 Holy Lands, an expert from the Holy Emperor cautiously said to Gu Han. The meaning behind his words was extremely obvious. You can't say it like that. The one who spoke up this time was actually Mo Wudao. He sighed and said, not lending a hand this time may seem like a small matter, but in reality, it has far-reaching effects. Firstly, in the past 100 years, our 3 Holy Lands have been working together to suppress Tian Fa, almost causing them to be unable to recover. If not for the appearance of Jun Moxie, Tian Fa would probably have been consigned to eternal damnation by now. It can be said that it was us who had personally removed Tian Fa's position as an ally and ally. In fact, the relationship between us is already irreconcilable and irreconcilable. In the current situation, even if the Tian Fa beasts did not come to this battlefield, no one can say anything. After all, even the strange races do not dare to enter their Tian Fa forest. In addition, they are not even humans, so no one has the right to condemn them. Mo Wudao said. But they still came, and they came resolutely. For the sake of the world, for the sake of the Shen continent, they abandoned their old enmity with us. This in itself is a righteous and benevolent act. This is the first. Mo Wudao and Tian Fa had many conflicts and enmity. He even had a grudge against Jun Moxie for killing his brother, and they could not live under the same sky. But this person did not lose the demeanor of a leader. When it came to such a big matter, his comments were objective and impartial, and he spoke with the truth. This point was commendable. Secondly, Gu Han continued coldly. The reason why Tianfa came was because the 3 holy lands went to plead with them. To put it bluntly, it was because we did not care about our face, lowered our statuses, and gave up on our pride to ask for their help. From this point, no matter what Tianfa's original intentions were, just from this point alone, the 3 holy lands are greatly indebted to them. From a strategic point of view, they are comrades in arms. From a deeper level, the situation this time can be said to be extremely grim. The Holy Lands do not have any chance of victory, and the danger of collapse is right in front of them. But Tianfa's appearance is equivalent to saving the 3 Holy Lands. Xia Chang Tian and the rest did not come to their aid. Not only did they destroy their own city, they also repaid kindness with enmity. Gu Han sighed. This was the other reason why he was not willing to step out to mediate. Gu Han was also extremely enraged by Xia Chang Tian's actions. Furthermore, if he forcefully stepped out to stop them, Gu Han knew that his face in front of Jun Moxie was not that big. The moment he opened his mouth, the greatest possibility was that even the rest of them would be sacrificed. No one in the war for seizing the heavens camp knew about Jun Moxie's strength, but how could he not know? More importantly, Jun Moxie was even more monstrous than that Zhang Kuang. He was truly a person who could not be killed. If 2 countries are at war, and 2 allied armies are fighting on the battlefield, and one side falls into a desperate situation, while the other side watches coldly from the sidelines, not moving at all, this is a capital crime. The crime of treason. Mo Wudao laughed bitterly. It's equivalent to rebellion. This crime is unforgivable. So, no matter how you look at it, Saint Monarch Xia's actions this time are a grave mistake. From a smaller perspective, it's disregarding the greater good, ungrateful, and repaying kindness with enmity. Mo Wudao said. From a larger perspective, no matter who the person in charge of Tianfa is, there is an 80% chance that both sides will fall out with each other. This kind of action is completely disregarding the safety of the world, playing with the fortune and misfortune of the common people. It can be said to be the most heinous crime, and it's extremely deranged. Gu Han sighed deeply. The Holy Emperor who asked the question couldn't help but be taken aback. Sect Lord, why are you? Mo Wudao laughed bitterly and said, Indeed, I've never had a good impression of Tianfa, the evil monarch manner, or even Jun Moxie himself. This is the truth. Be it before or in the future, I will still maintain my stand against Tianfa. But, in the face of such a major issue, I, Mo Wudao, will not go so far as to block out the greater good with my personal feelings. We dealt with Tianfa because we were certain that the strange races did not have the ability to invade, and we had full confidence in winning the war for seizing the heavens. Even if we completely annihilate Tianfa, that's an internal matter of the continent. But if the strange races were powerful, I would not have started a civil war no matter what. He sighed deeply and said, If I had known about today's matter, then I would have fixed my relationship with Tianfa at all costs. At the very least, I would have ensured the victory of this battle before anything else. I definitely would not have given the order to deal with Tianfa. Things change with the passage of time. It's truly a dazzling sight. Who would have thought that the pillar of heaven's mountains that had stood for 10,000 years would collapse at this critical moment? Shi Ruochen let out a long sigh and cursed through gritted teeth. Damn that Zhang Luanhui. Damn Zhang Kuang. Then, are we really just going to stand by and watch the battle between Saint Monarch Xia and Jun Moxie? And the lives of those 40 brothers, are we just going to abandon them? That holy emperor asked unwillingly. This is the price that Jun Moxie wants to exact. And Jun Moxie also has the ability to do so. We can only watch. Especially, in this delicate situation where a slight move in one part could affect the entire situation as a whole, we can't move. Acting rashly will only cause more trouble. Gu Han's eyes flashed with sorrow. Today's karma is yesterday's cause. Reaping what we sowed, who can we blame? Are we still going to insist on distorting the truth and start a war with Tian Fa and the evil Monarch manor? And let the strange races reap the benefits? Chu Wu Hui happened to be standing behind Gu Han, and he couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Suddenly, Gu Han's eyes narrowed, and he turned pale with fright. Oh no, looks like I've still underestimated Jun Moxie's true strength. Perhaps it's not just those 40 brothers. Even Xia Chang Tian will be facing a calamity. Speaking up to this point, even Gu Han himself was stunned by his own words and the truth before his eyes. Jun Moxie actually possessed such terrifying heaven-defying strength? Everyone was shocked and they all turned to look. With a single glance, everyone's jaws dropped, unable to close. Before the battle, everyone had guessed how this battle would turn out, but they never imagined that it would turn out like this. Jun Moxie was the evil monarch, and his cultivation was extraordinary. He even had the battle record of crushing Zhan Luanhui's spirit. But in the end, he was still a rising star of the younger generation. Although his cultivation speed was already shocking, he was still stuck at the Saint Venerable realm. It seemed like he hadn't broken through to the Saint Monarch realm yet, but Xia Chang Tian was a true Saint Monarch. And a third-level one. So everyone thought that Xia Chang Tian would have the upper hand in the battle. Even Gu Han thought so. Then as long as the battle reached a certain stage and the victor was clear, Gu Han would step out to mediate and the matter would be left unsettled. But as the battle continued, Xia Chang Tian was actually at an absolute disadvantage. An irreversible decline. This kind of situation was something that no one had ever dreamt of. In that moment, everyone was completely dumbfounded. Jun Moxie let out a long cry, and his movements were as swift as the wind. The black blade was like the wind, and it was extremely strange. His Xian Qi was like a tidal wave, surging endlessly. That slender 9 nether frost blade actually formed a black cloud in the air. Heaven and earth turned dark. Chapter 1166. The moment Xia Chang Tian clashed, he fell into a state of bitter struggle. Although his movements and techniques were not messed up, he could only passively counter every single move. He had no way to retaliate at all. Saint Monarch Xia's face had already turned the color of a pig's liver. Such a strong sense of humiliation filled his entire heart. Never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that Jun Moxie's strength could actually reach such a level. From the start, he had only been blocking, and blocking. He actually did not attack even once. As the saying goes, the first drumbeat of energy, the second will weaken, and the third will weaken. This was the logic of a battle formation. But Jun Moxie's attacks did not weaken at all. More and more ferocious, more and more violent. How did things develop to such a state? Not to mention Gu Han and the rest, even Xia Chang Tian himself was confused. He was a Saint Monarch expert, and although Jun Moxie's strength was not weak, he was clearly only at the Saint Venerable realm. He was clearly much weaker than him. But how did the situation turn out like this? Right now, Xia Chang Tian only felt as if he had fallen into a huge swamp. The more he struggled, the faster he fell. Right now, he was practically on the brink of death. He only remembered that when Jun Moxie's sword pierced over, he had wanted to block the attack and quickly take down this arrogant brat so that he could save his brother. But the opponent's seemingly simple sword had actually enveloped a radius of several zhang. If he retreated, he would naturally be safe. But facing a junior, if he retreated the moment they clashed, where would the prestige of a Saint Monarch go? Thus, Xia Chang Tian decided not to retreat. But because of this, he was unable to take advantage of the situation to counterattack. The opponent's attack was filled with a pitch-black sword light. It was clearly not something that his body could withstand. Thus he dodged it. Before he had even finished dodging, the next sword had already arrived at his throat. Xia Chang Tian was taken aback as he twisted his body to the side. Yet another sword had arrived in front of his heart. Xia Chang Tian sucked in his stomach and straightened his body, jumping up like a puppet. Just as he was about to strike, the sword light had already arrived at his danton. Just like that, Jun Mo Xie dodged and retreated step by step. It had only been 2 breaths of time since the start of the battle, But Jun Emosia had already attacked 365 times. Every strike was accompanied by a sharp sword light. As for Xia Chang Tian, he had dodged 365 times. Each time was more difficult than the last, and each time was more embarrassing than the last. But he didn't even have time to counterattack. Dodging time and time again, Xia Chang Tian realized that even if he wanted to fight with his life on the line, he no longer had the chance. If he wanted to cause damage to the other party, the only way was to self-destruct. The battle-hardened Xia Chang Tian suddenly felt a wave of sorrow in his heart. How could the result be like this? How could he, who had been through hundreds of battles and had never admitted defeat, be forced into such a state by such a young man? Could it be that he was in a nightmare? However, even if it was a nightmare, it didn't seem to be such a ridiculous thing. Jun Moxie's face was like iron, his eyes like ice, emotionless and cold. Sword after sword pierced out without the slightest bit of mercy. After completely merging with the Hongjun Pagoda, Jun Moxie's battle prowess had already risen to the level of a half-sage like Zhan Luanhui. Against this Xia Chang Tian, who was only a third-level Saint Monarch, he was filled with confidence. Because of this, he was able to force Xia Chang Tian into an absolute disadvantage the moment the battle began. He didn't give him any chance to catch his breath. The more Xia Chang Tian fought, the crazier he became. The more he fought, the more depressed he felt. The more he fought, the more he felt like he had lost all his face. Just a single wrong decision had pushed him and his brothers into the abyss of eternal damnation. First, he was humiliated in front of everyone, then questioned in front of everyone. Then, he had to watch helplessly as his brothers who had been with him for countless years fell into a dangerous situation where they could die at any moment. He was completely helpless and helpless. And then, he was forced into such an awkward and dangerous situation. Looking at Jun Moxie's cold face and those eyes that were filled with hatred and pleasure, Xia Chang Tian finally understood Jun Moxie's true method of revenge. First, he let him taste the helplessness of his brothers in a hopeless situation, and then he was humiliated and toyed with by his opponent, like a cat playing with a mouse. "You're so vicious." Xia Chang Tian dodged and hollered. His eyes were bloodshot, and his expression was as malevolent as a ghost's. The golden crown on his head was sliced off with a loud bang, and his thick black hair fell down. Drops of blood flowed down his face and onto the ground. "Xia Chang Tian, because of you, I've lost so many good brothers. Then, I will naturally make you watch as your brothers die in front of you. You're destined to savor this kind of wonderful taste before you die. Even if you don't want to savor it, you have no choice." Jun Moxie did not relax at all. He charged forward again, and his dark blades were like black clouds, like a black waterfall, falling from the sky. His voice was like ice beads, chilling to the bone. "Xia Chang Tian, do you feel very guilty? Do you feel that you're useless? Do you feel the pain in your heart? Do you regret what you did?" Jun Emosia let out a long howl, and the dark blade slashed out 99 times like a hurricane. Countless black sword rays that were several zhang long, mixed with a black mist, crisscrossed and covered the entire area. At the same time, his left hand pressed down fiercely. "Flame of primal chaos. Press down for me." The flame of primal chaos, which had already descended a great distance from the pit, suddenly began to descend even faster. Facing those despairing gazes, it mercilessly burned down. The blood-curdling screams that could shake one's heart suddenly rang out. Even the people in the camp thousands of feet away felt their hairs stand on end when they heard that mournful cry. That's right, Jun Moxie had been controlling it from the start. He did not allow the flame of primal chaos to complete its mission so quickly, because the revenge he wanted had not been completed yet. Cutting flesh with a blunt knife, that was the most torturous thing. The flame of primal chaos descended, turning everything into ashes. With a single slash, Xia Chang Tian's head was separated from his body. Everything happened in an instant, very quickly. But, did it feel good? Did it feel like revenge? Not good. Death was not scary. What was scary was knowing that death was right in front of your eyes, but it did not fall. That kind of feeling of waiting for death was the most terrifying. Just like how some men of steel did not fear anything, not even death. But they were most afraid of others torturing their family and friends in front of them. And what Xia Changtian cared about the most was not his own life. Destroying what the enemy cared about the most, and then destroying his life, was the true destruction. From the moment Jun Moxie planned to take revenge, he had already made up his mind. Causing the death of my brothers, and you want to die a quick death? Wishful thinking. Otherwise, although the flame of primal chaos's speed was slow, it should not be to this extent. Death was not that scary. Only the torment of waiting for death was the greatest torture. Just like Xia Changtian, he could only watch helplessly as his brothers approached death, waiting for him to save them, but he was powerless to do anything. All of this was because of him. Xia Changtian was the one who was suffering the most, the one who was suffering the most. And Jun Xie wanted to let him taste this kind of pain in its fullest. Hearing the inhuman screams, Xia Changtian's heart felt like it was being sliced by knives, his eyes red. Facing Jun Xie's incisive response, he no longer dodged. Instead, he roared in a shrill voice, "Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. This matter was instigated by me alone. Jun Xie, if you have any tricks up your sleeves, you can come at me. Don't torture my brothers. Don't continue. Are you in pain? Xia Changtan, all of this is because of you." Jun Xie's sword was like the wind, and the 9 nether frost blades slashed out repeatedly. Xia Changtian's body was suddenly shrouded in a red mist, and in the next instant, countless thin streams of blood spurted out from various parts of his body. Even if this matter started because of me, my brothers are all innocent. Xia Changtian's body was covered in blood as he glared at Jun Moxie fiercely. "Jun Moxie, as long as you're willing to let them go, I'll give up resisting and let you do as you please." "Haha." Jun Moxie roared with laughter. "If you'd said that before the battle, I might have admired your courage to admit to your actions, and on account of our brotherhood, I would have killed you to end this matter. But now that you're saying such words, it will only make me look down on you. Don't you still think that you still have a bargaining chip to bargain with? Could it be that if you don't let me do as I please, I won't be able to deal with you?" Xia Changtian finally went completely crazy when he heard that. At this moment, the last bit of pride he had was ruthlessly tossed aside by the other party. "Trample. Jun Moxie, since you're so overbearing, then follow me to hell. Even if my brothers and I have to die, I'll drag you down with me. Go to hell." His aura congealed, and the entire space seemed to freeze at this moment. Then, the heaven and earth suddenly went berserk. Vast amounts of heaven-earth yuan qi, at this moment, frantically poured into his body from all directions from the heavens and the earth. After a huge battle, countless experts had self-destructed, and the heaven-earth essence qi here was already in an unbalanced and berserk state. Most experts would have to be extremely careful when adjusting their breathing here, afraid that the chaotic qi would enter their body and mess up their internal energy. But Xia Changtian was actually swallowing it all without a care. Regardless of whether it was useful or harmful, he absorbed it all into his body, into his meridians. From this moment onwards, everything was already irreversible. When Gu Han saw such a change, he instantly understood what would happen next. Pale with fright, he immediately shouted, "Everyone, retreat quickly." Following his order, everyone from the 3 holy lands retreated rapidly. In the blink of an eye, they had already retreated several hundred zhang away. Everyone had a heavy expression on their faces. As for Tian Fa's side, although they were worried about Jun Moxie, they also retreated several hundred zhang away under Mei Shuiyan's strict orders. Everyone stared fixedly at the changes in the battlefield. Their eyes were filled with joy, but there was also some worry. After all, the opponent was a Saint Monarch-level expert. If he wanted to fight to the death, he might even self-destruct. Even if Jun Moxie's strength and movement techniques were shocking, he might not be able to escape unscathed. Only Mei Shuiyan was not worried about Jun Moxie's safety at all. Jun Moxie had the Hongjun Pagoda with him. Even if this world exploded, he would still be safe and sound. When the Tian Fa kings, Bear Mountain, and the rest saw that Mei Xuan was not worried at all, they naturally guessed that this powerful brother-in-law of theirs would definitely have a way to protect himself. Thus, they all relaxed. In the battlefield, Xia Chang Tian laughed sinisterly as he stared fixedly at Jun Moxie. The aura of his Xian Qi continued to rise. He broke through to the 3rd level of Saint Monarch, then slowly pushed to the peak of the 3rd level of Saint Monarch, and continued to break through. It only stopped when he reached the peak of the 4th level of Saint Venerable. Under such a strong suction force, even the wind in the sky seemed to have stopped blowing. The countless wounds on Xia Chang Tian's body that had been pierced by Jun Moxie had strangely stopped bleeding. That skinny body of his actually started to swell up slowly, turning into the shape of a ball, floating in the air. Second brother Xia. On the other side, Jibo Wen was already in a fluster under the blood of Yellow Flame's chaotic yet miraculous attacks. He could only defend himself, and did not have the strength to retaliate. The blood of Yellow Flame could even restrain Zhan Luanhui completely. Against a 2nd-level Saint Monarch like Jibo Wen, it was naturally even easier. But Jibo Wen was ultimately a Saint Monarch expert. Although his methods were poor, he was still able to defend. It was impossible for him to defeat the blood of Yellow Flame, but it was also difficult for the blood of Yellow Flame to kill him. Both sides fell into an uneven stalemate. But right now, Xia Chang Tian was already at the point of no return. He wanted to go all out and drag Jun Moxie down with him. How could Jibo Wen not sense it? The moment he saw the situation, he roared with rage. Disregarding his own safety, he forcefully charged forward, hoping to break through the blood of Yellow Flame's blockade and stop Xia Chang Tian from using his extreme methods. Unfortunately, no matter how anxious he was, no matter how forceful he was unable to break through the blood of Yellow Flame's blockade. He tried again and again, but it was all defused by the blood of Yellow Flame, forcing him to retreat step by step. After a few more breaths, Xia Chang Tian's aura finally reached its peak. Right now, he was completely crazy, and he no longer cared about anything in the world. The miserable screams of his brothers that rose and fell in his ears had long ago caused him to lose all reason. At this time, the screams from the pit were getting weaker and weaker. But no matter how soft, it was like Xia Chang Tian's heart was being slashed again and again by a bloody knife. Right now, Xia Chang Tian no longer wanted to continue living in this world. Such humiliation, such a huge enmity. If he couldn't wash it away, how could he have the face to continue living? Only death. Xia Chang Tian laughed maniacally, almost hysterically. His eyes unknowingly welled up with tears. This was the first time this Saint Monarch had shed tears in over 3,000 years. There was regret, there was hatred, there was despair, and his heart was like dead ashes. Jun Moxie, come with me. Jun Moxie's eyes were fixed on him, watching all the changes in him. Gritting his teeth, he said viciously, Xia Changtian, this is your ending. It's because you didn't save them that caused countless of my Tian Fa brothers to die. Today I will kill all your brothers. You made my brothers self-detonate, so I will force you to self-detonate as well. Blood for blood, a tooth for a tooth. This was Jun Moxie's usual method. Jun Mosie's vengeance had always been this straightforward and direct. Xia Chang Tian finally understood. So his final counterattack, self-detonation, was actually part of the enemy's plan. And the enemy's goal was to force him to self-detonate. This kind of aggrieved feeling of being a puppet on strings, being toyed with by others, made Xia Chang Tian wish he could die immediately. The wails and groans in the pit had completely disappeared. Xia Chang Tian's heart was filled with an endless emptiness. He clearly understood that his brothers had completely evaporated from this world. Perhaps there really wasn't a single trace of them left behind. Xia Chang Tian had finally lost his last bit of hope. Right now, he was the same as Bear Mountain's reaction when Eagle King died, a fate worse than death. But the meaning behind it was completely different. There was an almost essential difference. Bear King's brothers had died heroically in battle to save their elder brother, leaving their names in the annals of history. On the other hand, Xia Changtian's brothers had died because of Xia Changtian, destined to go down in history. The two could not be mentioned in the same breath. At this moment, Bear Mountain couldn't help but think of his brothers. Other than guilt, there was also pride and nostalgia. But Xia Changtian was different. Other than guilt, there was only guilt, only guilt. Even in the netherworld, Xia Changtian felt that he did not have the face to see his old brothers. Xia Changtian had completely broken down. Jun Moxie, this old man regrets. This old man regrets not killing your beast brothers with my own hands. This old man hates? Xia Changtian screamed hysterically. Killing my brothers with my own hands? You're not worthy. Xia Changtian, at least my brothers died heroically for the sake of the world. As for your death, what does it count for? Even if you die 10,000 times, it cannot compare to a single brother of mine. You are the shame of the Xian continent. The source of all the killing, the sinner of humanity, the traitor of the continent. A complete and utter bastard. A trash. A pile of trash. Xia Changtian screamed madly. 1,000 sins, all of them are on me. But on this road to the Yellow Springs, I'll have you to accompany me. Jun Moxie, let's die together. Rumble. An enormous explosion resounded, and then extremely dazzling white light erupted. Following this shrill cry, the Saint Monarch Xia Changtian finally unleashed his final counterattack of self-detonation. The violent explosion tore a huge hole through the thick clouds formed by the volcanic eruption. At this moment, the clear blue sky could be seen. Then, another huge mushroom cloud rose up, covering the blue sky that had just appeared behind the dark clouds. Immediately after, a large pit with a radius of nearly 2,000 feet appeared on the ground. It was so deep that the bottom could not be seen. In the distance, the Tian Fa warriors and a portion of the weaker cultivators from the three holy lands had actually fainted from the impact. Thousands of tents flew away in the sky like white clouds, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. The earth shook violently. I've finally finished writing this chapter. I'm probably going to receive a lot of scolding, calling me a pervert. That was how he had planned his revenge from the start. But in the end, he still couldn't stop writing, and it seemed a little overboard, but so be it. Chapter 1167. First update of the day. Sorry for being late. Continuing to work overtime, the final explosion. Dust and sand flew everywhere, and a huge crater had appeared in the middle of the explosion. The size of the crater was extremely shocking, almost as big as the crater that Jun Moxie had created with his power of earth. Xia Changtian, who had self-detonated, had naturally turned into dust. He couldn't be any more dead, and not even his holy infant or soul was left behind. But Jun Moxie, who had been at the center of the explosion, had also disappeared without a trace. Could it be that this brat had perished together with Xia Changtian? The faces of Gu Han and the rest were extremely heavy, and their expressions were extremely complicated. If the two of them had really perished together, then this matter would really be huge. Right now, the hearts of the people from the three holy lands could be said to be extremely strange. No one was mourning Xia Changtian's death. Instead, they were all praying that nothing would happen to their greatest enemy, Jun Moxie. Even Mo Wudao, who had originally hoped for Jun Moxie's death the most, was also praying from the bottom of his heart. Jun Moxie, please don't die. Right now, the strength of the continent really could not afford to lose any more, and the most important thing was that if Jun Moxie became a scapegoat for Xia Changtian, not only would Tian Fa not continue to help them fight against the outsiders, these Xian beasts would also go crazy and destroy all traces of the three holy lands. There was no doubt about this. All the experts present stared blankly at the scene in front of them, as if they had been struck by lightning. A total of 40 experts and a Saint Monarch expert had been annihilated in such a short period of time. The cause of all this was the work of a single person. If Jun Moxie did not die with them, then this result would be too terrifying. Second brother Xia Jibo was shocked to see Xia Changtian's self-detonation, and he cried out in grief and indignation. When Xia Chang Tian self-detonated, Ji Bo Wen had taken a few blows at the last moment and managed to escape. And the blood of Yellow Flame was naturally not willing to let him go. It also chased after him, sword after sword. Ji Bo Wen witnessed the death of his close friend and was flustered. He was actually injured one after another. But at this moment he was only shouting wildly, not caring about the injuries on his body. Suddenly, Ji Bo Wen's entire body shot up like an arrow into the sky, laughing bitterly as he leapt into the air. The blood of Yellow Flame also let out an abnormally shrill sword cry. After a few swings, the sword light flashed, and blood splattered like rain in the sky. An arm fell from the sky with a kachich sound. Ji Bo Wen was in so much pain that he suddenly raised his head in midair and spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood immediately turned into a blood mist that filled the sky, but his flying body still maintained a straight posture as he advanced at full speed. The blood of Yellow Flame buzzed as it chased after him. A moment of carelessness had actually allowed that fellow to escape. The blood of Yellow Flame felt that they had lost a lot of face, and they were a little angry out of humiliation. To embarrass a kid who thought he was very capable and had a lot of face, it seemed like the price he had to pay would be very terrifying. Ji Bo Wen roared with laughter and suddenly used all the strength in his body to roar, "Jun Moxie, since you're so inhumane, then this old man will make you regret it for the rest of your life. The things that second brother Xia hasn't finished, let me finish them." Before his voice even landed, his body suddenly twisted in a way that defied the laws of physics. Originally, he was charging straight into the sky, but now he was falling diagonally. His momentum was as sharp as the wind, and his speed was as fast as lightning. In just a flash, he actually left behind hundreds of afterimages in the sky. With a cooch sound, he charged towards Mei Xuan, who was on the ground. Ji Bo Wen laughed maniacally as he gathered all the strength in his remaining arm. His eyes glowed with an extremely malevolent light as he slapped down towards Mei Xuan's head. This palm was the accumulation of a second-grade Saint Monarch's entire life's worth of cultivation. When this palm was released, the space within a radius of 100 zhang with the palm as the center instantly froze. It was as if it had turned into a huge piece of metal. In this space, even the wind and air could no longer flow. Mei Xuan's hair that was floating in the air suddenly froze. Bear Mountain's mouth was wide open, his face filled with anger as if he was about to curse out loud. But at this moment he also froze. It was as if time and space had turned solid at this moment. Ji Bo Wen laughed maniacally, filled with the thrill of revenge. He wanted revenge on Jun Moxie, and the best way to take revenge was to kill the person that Jun Moxie cared about the most, the person that he loved the most. He had already decided that as long as he could kill Mei Xuan and take one look at Jun Moxie's sorrowful expression, he would immediately self-detonate. Just to be able to see Jun Moxie's heartbroken expression, Ji Bo Wen was already satisfied. There was nothing else he wanted. Everything was worth it. You want us brothers to suffer so much that living is worse than death? Then I will let you live in agony for the rest of your life. In remorse. For all eternity. When he thought of this, Ji Bo Wen laughed heartily. Yes, everyone only has one life. But when it's time to give it up, we will not be stingy. At such a close distance, none of the Tian Fa Xian beasts or the higher-ups of the evil monarch manor would be able to survive the self-detonation. He knew that Jun Moxie was not dead. Jun Moxie was definitely not dead, because that damnable demonic sword was still chasing after him crazily. This sword was undoubtedly under Jun Moxie's control. Since the sword was still flying, then Jun Moxie was definitely not dead. In other words, Xia Chang Tian's self-detonation had no effect on Jun Moxie at all. This fact caused Ji Bo Wen to be enraged. Jun Moxie, how can you not die? How can you not die? You deserve to die. You are the one who deserves to die the most. So Ji Bo Wen immediately chose this path of revenge. The resolute path of revenge. Kill Mei Xuan. As long as Mei Xuan died, even if Jun Moxie did not die in the end, he would have to face a life worse than death. Kill. A distance of 100 zhang was crossed by Ji Bo Wen in an instant. the space in front of his palm suddenly collapsed, forming a gigantic palm print that descended from the sky. That was the ultimate power of a second-level Saint Monarch, an all-out attack. An unstoppable attack of death. However, unstoppable did not mean that it was unstoppable. At that critical moment, Mei Shui Yen, who was supposed to be locked in the confinement space, let out a loud roar. All the power in her body suddenly exploded, and the whole space immediately emitted cracking sounds. Her beautiful hair fluttered once again, and she raised her jade-like hand, ready to counterattack. In that instant, the people from the 3 Holy Lands could not believe what they were seeing. Mei Xuan was actually able to break free from the space sealed by a Saint Monarch's lifetime of strength, and even able to counterattack. Then what kind of shocking cultivation did this Tian Fa Emperor have? Didn't he always call her Venerable Mei? Why was there such an inconceivable and incomprehensible phenomenon? But Mei Xuan did not counterattack in the end. It was not that she could not make a move, but there was no need. There was no need. Because a figure had appeared strangely in front of Mei Xuan, blocking Ji Bo Wen's path. With this person in front of Mei Xuan was confident that there was no power in the world that could break through this person and harm her. That was what she believed. Along with the appearance of that person, dozens of black sword shadows flashed and disappeared at lightning speed. A pair of palms appeared out of thin air. In an instant, the space was filled with a dense purple mist. The mystical purple mist rose densely, and it seemed to be filled with the most mysterious Tao in the universe. When Gu Han saw this purple mist, his expression changed greatly. Within this purple mist, there was clearly an unlimited amount of opportunities. If he wanted to break through and advance, this would most likely be the most crucial point. After that, this pair of palms met Ji Bo Wen's enormous palm print condensed from profound energy head-on. It was as if a towering mountain had suddenly appeared in front of a raging torrent. Heavenly lightning collided with earthly fire, a deafening sound like the collision of the sun and moon. To be able to make Mei Xuan so confident, to be able to possess such a miraculous ability, there was only one person, Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie's face was cold, and his eyes were filled with an almost hysterical rage. When his lover's life was in danger, he suddenly appeared out of thin air, not taking a single step back, and clashed head-on with a Saint Monarch. Ji Bo Wen howled miserably, and before his body even landed on the ground, he was already sent flying. Dozens of blood arrows shot out from his front and back. Those dozens of black sword shadows were a total of 49 nether frost blades, and at this moment, they pierced through his body. Then, Jun Moxie's palms, which were filled with primordial purple chi, slammed down viciously. Under such a tyrannical and terrifying impact, Ji Bo Wen was like a 3-year-old child who had suddenly been rammed by a stampeding bull. His arms and legs flailed as he was sent flying. Blood spurted out from his mouth like a fountain, flying tens of zhang into the air. Jun Moxie's face also flushed red, and he stumbled backwards, spitting out a mouthful of blood. His back knocked into Mei Xuan, and only then did he finally stop, and he fell weakly onto the ground. Ji Bo Wen was ultimately a Saint Monarch, and even if Jun Moxie could obtain a complete victory, it didn't mean that he didn't have to pay a price. In truth, Jun Moxie had fought 2 Saint Monarchs consecutively, and the Hongjun Pagoda's energy that he had borrowed previously had already been completely used up. His meridians were in a state of chaos, and his internal and external injuries could no longer be suppressed, and he finally couldn't hold on any longer. But Jun Moxie's eyes were still fixed on Ji Bo Wen. If Ji Bo Wen could still move, then even if his soul was destroyed, he would fuse with the Hongjun Pagoda again. He would definitely grind this bastard's bones into dust. With a light cry, the blood of yellow flame that came from Ji Bo Wen's back did not slow down at all, and mercilessly pierced into Ji Bo Wen's back. Then it stopped there. The blood of yellow flame that was flying at the speed of light should have completely pierced through Ji Bo Wen's body without any obstruction. Because Ji Bo Wen's body could be said to be completely defenseless, and even the 9 nether frost blade that was far inferior to the blood of yellow flame could still pierce through it, let alone the blood of yellow flame that was countless times sharper than the 9 nether frost blade. But the truth was just this mysterious, this inconceivable. Chapter 1168. The second update has arrived. Continue to struggle, Jibo Wen howled in rage. He breathed with all his might, opening his mouth and sucking in with all his might. The spiritual chi between heaven and earth, which was already abnormally chaotic, was now converging towards his mouth like 100 rivers converging into the sea. After Xia Chang Tian, the Saint Monarch, self-detonated, another Saint Monarch expert was about to unleash his ultimate move that would bring the enemy down with him. Actually, if Jibo Wen chose to self-destruct, then his holy infant's soul would definitely be able to escape. Even though his internal organs were all heavily injured and shattered by Jun Moxi's primal chaos purple chi. Even his body had been turned into a transparent sieve by the 49-9 nether frost blades. There was even the blood of yellow flames sticking out of his body. But a Saint Monarch was still a Saint Monarch. As long as he was willing to self-destruct and escape, then even the blood of yellow flame wouldn't be able to stop him. The only one who could stop him was Jun Moxi. But right now, Jun Dashao's internal and external injuries had all erupted. If he really wanted to escape, Dashao might not take the risk to stop him. As for Mei Shuyin, although she had the strength to fight against him, she was still helpless against a mysterious existence like the Holy Infant. But right now, Jibo Wen didn't want to leave at all. Or rather, he didn't want to live anymore. After seeing his 40 brothers turn into green smoke, and seeing his close friend Xia Chang Tian self-destruct, Jibo Wen no longer had anything left to live for. His only wish was revenge. Jun Moxi, your brothers cannot die for nothing. Could it be that my brothers should die in your hands for nothing? If I don't make you pay a corresponding price, I will not rest. Right now, he was right in the middle of Tian Fa and the evil Monarch Manor's camp. As long as he self-destructed, with Jun Moxi's weak and feeble state, even he wouldn't be able to escape. As long as he self-destructed, even he wouldn't be able to escape. Since he didn't want to live anymore, he might as well drag these people down with him before he died. It could be considered as revenge. What justice, what future of the continent, what peace of mankind, all of it could go to hell. Heaven and earth yuan chi crazily surged into his body from all directions. Jibo Wen laughed maniacally as he sensed the disordered spiritual chi of different attributes rushing into his body faster and faster. He was laughing with satisfaction, laughing with joy. To be able to have so many enemies accompany him on his journey, and to have his revenge, how could he not be satisfied? The spiritual chi gathered faster and faster. In the end, there was even a whooshing sound. In the sky, there was still a continuous stream of spiritual chi that converged into a light green stream, flashing past. The area Jibo Wen was in had turned into a huge conical funnel. Spirit chi swirled in the sky and rushed downwards. Jibo Wen laughed maniacally. Second brother Xia. Wait for me. Brother, I'm coming to accompany you. Not only me, but I will also bring that goddamn Jun Moxi and those beasts with me to look for you. At that time, you can do whatever you want. Ha! In the midst of his maniacal laughter, Jibo Wen's laughter suddenly stopped. He widened his eyes in disbelief and screamed in horror, "How could this be? How could this be?" His voice was filled with fear and panic, as if he had lost control. Because, with such a terrifying amount of heaven and earth ling chi entering his body, the amount he had obtained was at least twice of what Xia Chang Tian could have obtained. But his body still did not show any signs of change. There were no signs of swelling, and even his meridians did not feel the slightest bit full. The wounds on his body were still dripping with fresh blood. Everything was the same as before. What's going on? What's going on? Jibo Wen frantically inspected his body. He could only feel his life force flowing out of his body, but he did not find a single strand of ling chi in his meridians. Where did all the ling chi he had just obtained go? He suddenly roared, "What's going on? How could this be?" Everything was out of control. Not only was the situation out of control, even the ling chi that he was so familiar with could not be used. He had completely lost control. What's going on? How could this be? The blood of yellow flame was stuck in Jibo Wen's body, glowing with a faint green light. With this fellow stuck in Jibo Wen's body and blocking his meridians, how could he dream of self-detonating? To think that he could drag so many people down with him was even more unrealistic than a dream. The blood of Yellow Flame had been starving for a long time these few days. He had never had the chance to drink the blood of an expert. The last time he met Jean Luen Hui, it could be said to be a top-grade delicacy. But it was a pity that the delicacy had disappeared. But this time, it had burrowed into the body of a Saint Monarch. It could be considered as making up for it. The blood of Yellow Flame was about to go crazy with joy. Although this fellow was not as good as that old fellow from before, he was still a top-grade tonic. Especially the fact that this fellow did not even think of escaping. This filled the blood of Yellow Flame with an indescribable sense of goodwill. What a good person! Letting me absorb without moving at all. Where else in the world could I find another Saint Monarch expert as obedient and kind-hearted as him? So the blood of Yellow Flame was truly treasured. In fact, it was even a little stingy, carefully absorbing inch by inch, afraid that this kind-hearted fellow would discover it and disintegrate it, then it would be too late for regrets. Just as he was rejoicing in his heart that he had made a fortune, an even greater benefit suddenly arrived. This huge benefit was like a huge meat pie falling from the sky, smashing right onto the blood of Yellow Flame's head, smashing until it was dizzy and overjoyed. Fuck, this feels so good, it feels so good. I've seen people who know how to adapt to circumstances, but I've never seen someone as sensible as this. Old fellow, this sword loves you to death. This fellow really knows how to do things. This fellow actually opened the heaven and earth bridge at this time and started absorbing the Ling Qi of heaven and earth crazily. The blood of Yellow Flame almost started cheering crazily in Jibo Wen's body. Too cool. Really too cool. This is truly what it means to get what you want. Heaven was really fulfilling his wishes. When he was thinking of a wife, 2 naked girls came to him. Not only did they send them over, they even sent them as gifts. Moreover, they did not resist at all and cooperated with him in a manner that allowed him to do whatever he wanted. Jibo Wen's self-detonation that he had been preparing for a long time was not ruined at all, and all benefited the blood of Yellow Flame. No matter how much heaven-earth spiritual qi was channeled into his body, the blood of Yellow Flame maintained a steady state of devouring, not wasting a single bit. Right now, Jibo Wen, this tragic Saint Monarch, had completely become a medium for the blood of Yellow Flame to communicate with the heaven-earth spiritual qi. Under the cooperation of the blood of Yellow Flame and Jibo Wen, the heaven-earth Ling Qi seemed to have gone berserk, surging forth in waves, surging over in a grandiose manner. This was the remnant essence left behind by the deaths of over 200,000 strange races, as well as the chaotic Ling Qi from the self-detonation of thousands of Tian Fa warriors and tens of peak experts. The total amount of energy was an indescribably terrifying number. Originally, this was an energy that no living being could obtain, and would only return to heaven and earth with the passing of time, but today, under this lucky coincidence, it had created a great opportunity for the blood of Yellow Flame. In this world, other than Jun Moxie, no one else would have known or imagined that such a sword existed. A Xian technique that could absorb one's blood essence. A demonic sword that could kill souls and lives, and increase its own strength. The origin of such a miraculous ability was completely the result of Jun Moxie's continuous experimentation when he first obtained the power of gold. Jun Dashao would take out the blood of Yellow Flame to refine whenever he had the time. Every time he saw a good material, he would refine it again. Normally, no matter how many times a sword was refined, it would only take 2 or 3 times before it was completely formed. But Jun Moxie had refined the blood of Yellow Flame thousands of times. He did not care about the price, and kept on using different methods to refine it. Finally, it gave birth to an unparalleled freak in this world. For experts who had the intention to self-destruct, what was a sword in their body? Any expert who had the ability to self-destruct would be able to unleash a force that could destroy mountains. What was a mere sword to them? Even if it was made of a special material, no matter how miraculous the weapon was, it wouldn't be a problem. He did not place it in his heart at all. So Jibo Wen naturally did not place the sword in his heart. Since he was going to die anyway, before he died, it wouldn't matter much if he suffered another sword, or if he had a sword stuck in his body. If he could take the opportunity to destroy Jun Moxie's weapon, it could be considered as a side benefit. But he had never imagined that the blood of Yellow Flame would be such a perverse existence. It was definitely the most miraculous existence since the creation of the Xian continent. By the time Jibo Wen finally sensed that something was amiss, a third of the Heaven-Earth Ling Qi had already flowed through his body and into that demonic sword. Jibo Wen finally lost all hope. His heart was dead. As a Saint Monarch expert, he was actually reduced to a state where he did not even have the right to self-destruct. This was truly the greatest sorrow of the universe. Jibo Wen was flustered and exasperated. He spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. After a few more twists and turns, he exhausted the last bit of energy in his body and finally stopped the self-destruct mantra. Although he did not know what had happened, he was certain that the sword that was stuck in his body was definitely strange. The culprit that was absorbing the Heaven-Earth Ling Qi from his body was definitely it. That was why he disregarded everything and stopped the self-destruct, not wanting the blood of Yellow Flame to continue benefiting. But who would have thought that this action would add another heavy blow to his mental state? Chapter 1169. I just praised you for a bit and you're done? Do you think it's easy for this daddy to come across such an opportunity? You're going to end it just like that? This is truly intolerable. The human can endure it, but the sword can't. Unable to endure it, and unable to absorb anything else, it naturally turned to absorbing Jibo Wen's life essence and soul energy. Fuck you. You've ruined this Lord Sword's plans. This Lord Sword will destroy your soul. Jibo Wen naturally understood the condition of his body the best, and when he sensed it, his heart was filled with shock. Now was not the time and place, and he couldn't help but feel that as long as there's life, there's hope. With a loud roar, he began to circulate his mental cultivation technique, intending to escape from the Holy Infant, hoping to make a comeback and take revenge, but to his despair, he discovered that his body was no longer under his control. That despicable sword had already sunk into his dantian, and had even pierced through his Holy Infant. At the same time, it was absorbing his life chi and soul essence at an incomparably fast speed. The Holy Infant was a miraculous existence that had form but no body, and there was almost nothing that could harm it. But right now it was actually pierced through, and it was completely unable to escape. Jibo Wen had the chance to break apart and escape, but he did not do so. Now that he wanted to do so, he could no longer escape. The affairs of the world were always so mysterious. As to why such a situation had occurred, the reason was simple. After the blood of Yellow Flame had absorbed a large amount of Heaven-Earth Ling Qi, its strength had already far surpassed Jibo Wen's. Most of the spiritual qi it had absorbed was the pure energy that Jibo Wen had converted, and their attributes were almost the same. With the blood of Yellow Flame's current strength, it was able to suck Jibo Wen to the point that he could not move at all. Any resistance was meaningless, and it would only cause the blood of Yellow Flame's energy to be drained away. Therefore, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, an extremely strange scene played out. Jibo Wen's body slowly floated up and suddenly froze in midair. Then, his entire body withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Slowly, he became a dried-up corpse, but he continued to shrink. In the end, there was only a soft piu sound, as if someone had accidentally let out a muffled fart. His entire body completely disappeared in the air, turning into nothingness. The spiritual qi between heaven and earth was finally no longer turbulent. Only a single sword, flickering with cold light, froze in midair. This shocking turn of events caused everyone to be dumbstruck. What was going on? Earlier, they clearly saw that Jibo Wen was also preparing to self-destruct. No, it should be more accurate to say that he had already self-destructed, causing everyone to retreat a few hundred meters away. However, they did not expect that this Saint Venerable's so-called self-destruction was not even as powerful as a normal person's fart. At least the stench would last for a while. What was going on? Just when everyone was in a state of confusion, the sword that was still hovering in the air let out a loud sword cry. Everyone had the illusion that the sound was actually filled with humanity. It was filled with a sense of satisfaction. This kind of feeling was incomparably wonderful. A sword could actually emit emotions like a human? Moreover, this sword chime was mixed with the feeling of a human burp after eating and drinking to his heart's content. Then, that sword shot up into the sky. An infinitely bright sword light, like a huge pillar of light, suddenly formed in midair. It was as thick as a house and several hundred meters long. A mountain in the distance, with a loud clang, was pierced through, forming a large round hole. Then, this sword quietly descended and flew into Jun Moxie's hands. It actually somersaulted a few times in his hands, like an excited child acting coquettishly, then it suddenly disappeared without a trace. After eating its fill, it naturally needed to digest. This was the case for humans, and it was the same for swords. A bright light flashed in Jun Moxie's eyes. He had not expected that the blood of Yellow Flame's harvest this time would be so huge. No wonder it couldn't wait to enter the Hongjun Pagoda to digest and absorb it. The amount of heaven-earth spiritual chi that Jibo had obtained was undoubtedly huge, and the purity was not bad either. But this not bad still had to be graded. Compared to the energy of the blood of Yellow Flame itself, there was still a gap, not to mention compared to the purest heaven-earth spiritual chi in the Hongjun Pagoda. So it still needed to further purify the newly obtained heaven-earth spiritual chi. Only then could it truly transform into the most perfect energy for itself. And all of this required a process. But entering the Hongjun Pagoda to assimilate it would greatly shorten this process. This was the first time the blood of Yellow Flame had taken the initiative to enter the Hongjun Pagoda ever since it had formed its sword spirit. In the past, every time it came out, it would be like a mischievous child, always being forced to enter unwillingly. At this point, the outcome was already decided. The 3 Saint Venerables and the 2 Holy Emperors who had luckily escaped being sealed by the Xian Bing Xian and burned by the heavenly fire were all standing at the side in a daze. From start to end, they had not made a single move. Gu Han's face was filled with a complicated expression, mixed with a trace of regret and desolation as he walked over with the rest. Jun Moxie slowly stood up from the ground. His face was still as pale as paper, and his internal organs were aching as if they were being torn apart. It was as if someone was using a sharp knife to cut at his brain, and the meridians in his body felt like they were about to break apart at any moment. His muscles and bones were also convulsing in pain. But Jun Moxie's face was still as calm as ever, his eyes sharp and calm. His back was straight, and he had a carefree look on his face. Senior Gu's complexion doesn't seem to be too good. The battle is just around the corner, and you should rest well. Senior Gu's strength can be said to be at the top of the Xian continent. If you cannot participate in this battle because of your illness, the Xian continent's chances of victory will be even slimmer. Jun Moxie said with a faint smile. His complexion doesn't look good? Looking at his 42 brothers being killed in front of his eyes, and he could not do anything to stop it, how could Gu Han's complexion be good? What bullshit strength, the top of the Xian continent. If it was really the top of the Xian continent, would you dare to be so arrogant? As for resting, how could he have the mood to rest now? Not to mention that he was not sick. Even if he was sick, he would still endure it. Even if he had to die, he would die on the battlefield against the strange races. In truth, Jun Moxie's admiration for Gu Han was also from the bottom of his heart. From Gu Han's spasming face, as well as the deep teeth marks and traces of blood at the corner of his mouth, one could imagine that Gu Han was not someone who did not care about his brothers. He cared a lot too much. But for the sake of the big picture, Gu Han had no choice but to watch from the side. This wasn't a cowardice, but a rare display of courage. The torment in Gu Han's heart was definitely not any less than Xia Chong Tian's. In fact, it was even more intense. At least Xia Chong Tian still had a way to vent, to say and do everything he wanted to do. But Gu Han could only hide everything in his heart, and even compromise with a smiling face. In the end, it was his brother who made the mistake first. Since there was a mistake, he had to take responsibility. Facing Jun Moxie's domineering attitude, for the sake of the continent, for the sake of the people, Gu Han could only compromise. From the start, Jun Moxie had already made up his mind. If Gu Han and the three Holy Lands really wanted to interfere and protect his people, then he would immediately gather his men and return to the Tian Fa forest without looking back. What a joke. Does this brother really have some bullshit obligation to protect the continent and the people? I can't even protect my own brothers, and you want me to be the one to protect the world? Compromise and compromise? Bullshit. Righteousness of the world? Even more bullshit. When would this young master be so bored as to joke around with the lives of my brothers? Tian Fa had already sacrificed too much for this continent. Could people really be so shameless? But Gu Han did not disappoint Jun Moxie again. Manor Lord Jun. Too much. Too much. Your way of doing things is too much. Gu Han's face seemed to have aged a few hundred years in an instant. The wrinkles on his face and the white hair on his head were all revealed. It was completely different from the original elegant and jade-like appearance. It was as if they were two different people. Too much? Really too much? Jun Moxie laughed strangely. No. It's still not enough. He pointed at the other 5 people. Aren't there still people who are not dead? The main culprit has even gotten justice. But haven't those accomplices still not given an explanation? Manor Lord Jun, could it be that you really want to kill all of them before you are satisfied? Gu Han was so angry that he started breathing heavily. His eyes stared fixedly at Jun Moxie's face. Jun Moxie, can't you think about the upcoming battle and preserve some of your strength? Such words were already close to begging. The rage in Jun Moxie's heart flared up again. Now you know what it means to think about the upcoming battle and preserve some of your strength? Why didn't that damn Xiachang Tian know this? If he was willing to lend a hand, would the Eagle Xiong army suffer such heavy casualties? Would the 8 Saint Venerables all fall? Would the Eagle King be sacrificed? But Jun Mo Xie and Gu Han looked at each other silently, not saying a single word. Gu Han's eyes were filled with pain, as well as a trace of sincere hope. Jun Moxie's heart skipped a beat. He heaved a sigh of relief and said coldly, "The main culprit has already been executed. I have no interest in continuing to tangle with those small characters. I'll let them off for now. But after the battle, these few people still have to give me an explanation. This kind of selfish and arrogant behavior, I will not let them off no matter what." Chapter 1170. Today's 4th chapter. Make Up for What You Owe, Chapter 19. This chapter has 4,300 words, making up for the lack of 1,000 words from yesterday. There's no need to trouble yourself. One of the Saint Venerables glared at Jun Moxie. Our brothers of thousands of years are all dead. We will not continue living in this world either. The only reason we haven't committed suicide is because we want to kill a few more strange races in this battle, that's all. We brothers have decided to sacrifice our lives in this battle. Jun Moxie, let's settle who owes whom in our next life. That's fine too. It's up to you to make this choice. Jun Moxie Lenglang said. If you really have a next life, I will definitely accompany you. The 5 of them snorted coldly and walked out. They sat down cross-legged beside the huge pit and closed their eyes to regulate their breathing. The 5 of them did not even look at Gu Han. They did not even look at their former comrades. Just the 5 of them alone. They could not be tolerated by Tian Fa or the Holy Lands. They really could not be tolerated by the world, the country, the people, and even themselves. Manor Lord Jun, you've helped your brothers vent their anger this time. But have you ever thought about how we are going to fight the outsiders in the coming battle? Gu Han shook his head and sighed. The more he thought about it, the more he felt like there was a huge rock in his heart. But have you ever thought about it? So many of our experts have died in the Civil War, and we don't have enough battle power. How to fight? We'll fight how we should fight. Jun Moxie said indifferently. We can't possibly stretch out our necks to take a knife, right? Gu Han laughed in anger and stomped his feet. Jun Moxie, do you know that if we lose this battle, you will have to bear the majority of the responsibility for your rash actions today? At that time, you will be the sinner of humanity. Do you really not care about that at all? Gu Han was indeed regretful. It was too late for regrets. So many people had stood out earlier, causing the conflict between both sides to intensify. Gu Han already knew that this matter was destined to not end peacefully. But he still held onto a tiny bit of hope. The law does not punish numerous offenders. Even with Jun Moxie's current strength, it was impossible for him to deal with so many experts. Even if Jun Moxie had other trump cards, in the face of righteousness, Jun Moxie would think twice and change his mind. After they had fought for a while and vented some of their anger, he would step forward to dissuade them. At that time, Xia Chang Tian and Jibo Wen also saw that Jun Moxie's strength was not to be trifled with. And a great battle indeed required each other's strength. He believed that both sides would give him face after considering their own positions and temporarily stop fighting. Even if they had to settle scores after the battle, it would be better than wasting their lives now, but Gu Han had never expected this. Jun Moxie's first move was a thunderous attack. It was a trump card that could kill with a raise of the hand. Before the blink of an eye, a total of 40 of the less than 50 people had fallen into a state of eternal damnation. His life and death were all in the hands of Jun Moxie. And Xia Chang Tian hadn't even said a few words before he started a life and death battle with Jun Moxie. In less than half an instance's time, he was forced to self-destruct. Then Jibo Wen even crazily took revenge on Jun Moxie and tried to harm the entire Tian Fa camp. But in the end, he was also turned into a wisp of green smoke. All of this was too much for the eyes to take in. Everything was progressing too quickly. Gu Han hadn't even thought of an excuse to stop it when everything was already settled. Finally, all he saw was Jibo Wen's bloody body floating in the air before he completely disappeared. Gu Han's heart was in extreme pain. Jun Moxie's way of doing things was simply too tyrannical, too decisive. He didn't even give anyone any time to react. By the time he regained his senses, everything was already over. Even if all the responsibility is on my head, so what? Even if I really lost, so what? The so-called sinner title, do you think I care? Jun Moxie laughed coldly. Even if I was wrong, so what? When I, Jun Moxie, set my mind on something, I never care about right or wrong. I only ask if I should. I only ask if I have any guilt in my heart. Gu Han was so angry that even his beard was trembling. Your actions are completely disregarding the bigger picture. Disregarding the bigger picture? If you disregard the bigger picture, you will definitely be wronged. That is simply too tiring and too stupid. It is precisely because Tian Fa considered the bigger picture that they rushed to the battlefield the moment they saw the pillars of heavens collapsing, disregarding the price and sacrifices to stop the outsiders' attack. But what did they wait for? Only their allies watching coldly from the sidelines, making sarcastic remarks, completely disregarding their contributions and sacrifices? Could it be that Xia Chang Tian really cares about the bigger picture? Today's matter truly bites my heart. Jun Moxie shook his head and said indifferently, I've always been a very extreme person. I've never cared about the big picture, the big picture, the big picture, the small things, and so on. I only know that even if I can be wronged, my brothers cannot be wronged because of me. My brothers have been wronged and harmed, so I must definitely get it back. No matter what price I have to pay, I must get it back. If someone hurts my finger, I will definitely break their arm. That's all. I admit that I am not a successful leader, much less a qualified politician. I'm just a wanderer who does whatever I want. I only wish to have a clear conscience. Jun Moxie smiled lightly. It's not that my brothers cannot die. Since they came to this battlefield, they were already prepared to die. But that does not mean that they can be harmed to death. Dying on this battlefield, I have nothing to say, and I will be even more proud of my brothers. But the problem now is that they could have not died. But because of our allies, they were sacrificed innocently. So I must take revenge, I must get justice. I will never hesitate to do what I should do. Just like this battle, I could have chosen not to come. I believe that as long as I say the word, the entire evil Monarch Manor and Tian Fa Forest will not let a single person appear in this world. But I still came. Killing is accompanied by sacrifice. It doesn't matter. My brothers and I have always been clear that since we came here, we did not intend to go back alive. He raised his head and looked at Guhan. No matter how tragic our deaths are, we have no complaints. But if we die for no reason, then we cannot. The Tian Fa Holy Lands and evil Monarch Manor will never fear any strong enemies, but they will fear allies who stab them in the back. Since it was the people from the Holy Lands who caused my brothers to die for no reason, then I will seek justice. As for what kind of result this justice will lead to, I have never considered it because there is no need to consider. If you consider too much, your hands and feet will be tied. Tiring. June Moxie grinned. How good is it to be like me, living a simpler life? Gu Han was speechless, and the helplessness in his heart reached its peak. Meeting someone like June Moxie, no matter how much logic you have, you will not be able to explain it clearly. No matter what you do, he has his own set of principles. You may have 1,000 principles, but I have a set of rules. I do as I please. That's all. He doesn't even consider the safety of the people of the world. What else do you expect him to consider? A fellow who only cares about his own family, only cares about his own righteousness, what else can you say? According to what you said, if everyone is like you, then what will this world become? If this old man protects my brothers like you, what will the consequences be? Gu Han was a little exasperated. Then who will protect this continent? Who will be responsible for the entire human race? Who asked you to be responsible? Did anyone ask you to be responsible? June Moxie rolled his eyes. What a joke. Just look at this Shen continent. Has anyone really knelt down and begged you to protect them? I'm not afraid to tell you that you guys have nothing better to do. Look at how you have spoiled the people of this continent. Everyone does not know gratitude, does not think of repaying, and still wants to fight? Fight my ass. Gu Han was so angry that he couldn't speak. In thousands of years, this was the first time he had been angered to such an extent. What about me? As for what you said, if you also protect your own people like me, what will the consequences be? June Moxie glared at him and said, I really don't know about this. Who would know about something that has never happened? After the battle, we will naturally know. Gu Han had a feeling of wanting to vomit blood. This was clearly a fallacy. He really didn't know what kind of brain June Moxie had to have to say such things. Fight a battle and we will know? Isn't this pure nonsense? But if they really fought a battle, wouldn't it be equivalent to the two of them joining hands to give the strange races a huge gift? Simply unreasonable. Looking at Gu Han's flustered and exasperated expression, June Moxie suddenly laughed. Do you think that my words are very unpleasant to hear? June Moxie laughed mockingly. I can tell you responsibly that if you want people to unite against a common enemy, it will only be meaningful if you let them taste some bitterness first. The people at the back do not know anything. The entire continent is singing and dancing, and only you guys have protected the continent for more than 10,000 years. Let's not talk about whether you guys are truly great or not. If you guys tell others, will those people who have never seen the strange races believe you? They will only think that you guys are a bunch of liars. Humans, only when the pressure reaches a certain limit, will they know how to resist. And it is only when they are seriously invaded that they will come together from a pile of loose sand. June Moxie said indifferently. And the three holy lands are the same. Just as selfish and arrogant as the humans at the back. June Moxie said, when the strange races have already started the war, you guys can actually still look at the Alliance army as a joke, wholeheartedly thinking of using the Alliance army as cannon fodder. Heh, Senior Gu. Don't blame me for speaking harshly. Even if the three holy lands are not destroyed in this battle, sooner or later, they will be destroyed because of this. For a whole 10,000 years, you guys have silently guarded the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, a place where no one has ever set foot in. Silently sacrificing, it seems to be very noble. But don't forget, in these 10,000 years, all you guys have done is to develop the strength of the three holy lands, while the people of the continent do not have any sense of danger, and thus there is no further progress. In fact, the majority of the people do not even know of the existence of the strange races. But what about the strange races? June Moxie laughed mockingly. I remember you once said that you guys will rotate the Holy Emperor to train and raise your battle strength. But have you guys ever thought that while you are training your soldiers, aren't you also training the soldiers of the strange races for 10,000 years? What is the difference in this? Have you thought about it? Gu Han was stunned, as if he was struck by lightning, sweat pouring down like rain. He was actually stunned. His heart suddenly started beating like his heart was palpitating. In that instant he was dumbfounded, sweat pouring down his forehead like rainwater. The strange races have lived in barren and cold lands for a long time, but regardless of the adults or children, they all have the responsibility of invading the continent. Have you seen the corpses of the strange races on the battlefield today? June Moxie said. Most of them are dressed in rags, some are even in tatters, and their faces are emaciated. I can be sure that on the side of the strange races, they are only the lowest battle strength. But let me tell you, among them, the weakest is at least at the peak of the Earth Xian realm. Most of them are Tian Xian strength. 200,000 Tian Xian, what kind of concept is that? Gu Han stood there in a daze, as if he didn't hear June Moxie's words. This time, they indeed killed close to 200,000 in one go. The results are glorious, but this is only the strength that the strange races have gathered in half a day. June Moxie snorted coldly. May I ask Senior Gu, how many Tian Xian warriors are there in our entire continent? How much time do you need to prepare to gather a 200,000 Tian Xian army? Not to mention half a day like the strange races, even if I give you a month, do you think you can do it? Gu Han's face flushed red, and then turned pale white. Peak experts, perhaps both sides are about the same. But the middle and lower levels are far from it. In the past war for seizing the heavens, it was only a battle between a few people, and not a large-scale war. But now, the pillar of heaven's mountains have collapsed. The strange race's battle strength is also fully displayed. All of this is caused by your 3 holy lands. June Moxie said mercilessly, that's because the people at the back don't have any pressure. Without pressure, they won't practice hard. Therefore, even though the Xian continent is vast and rich in resources, its experts are as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. Even if there are experts, when one appears with great difficulty, they are immediately recruited by your 3 holy lands. To put it nicely, you want them to join the 3 holy lands in the name of nobility. But after joining, how many of them become small fries? How many of them are unable to recover from this setback? And these people were originally the seeds of the various lands. They had the hope of nurturing countless outstanding disciples and strengthening the continent's strength. But they were all locked up in the deep mountains by you. Under such circumstances, the strange races are all soldiers, and the people of our continent are just a bunch of lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Even if there are only a few million strange races, they are still a few million Earth Xian Tian Xian people. June Moxie said sharply, and this is the result of you helping to train the soldiers. Everyone fell silent, carefully thinking about June Moxie's words. Your 3 holy lands treat the war for seizing the heavens as an everlasting glory, as an honor that only you have. You would rather taste loneliness in the deep mountains, waiting for the glory that the next sacrifice will bring, than to sow more seeds on the continent. You treat this kind of war as an honor, and it's your personal glory, but you don't allow others to touch it. Even if it's help with good intentions, you disdain it, and even want to get rid of it. Tian Fa is the best example. And the result of this is that the Xian continent will become weaker and weaker, while the strange races will become stronger and stronger. June Moxie did not stop. Tian Fa always helps you win the war for seizing the heavens for the sake of righteousness, but you think that they are the ones stealing and sharing your glory. You actually feel uncomfortable because of this, and want to stand in the position of a saint forever. You actually want to kill all of your allies. Chapter 1171. All of you, tell me, isn't the current situation laughable? June Moxie's gaze swept across the faces of the upper echelons of the 3 holy lands, his gaze cold and sharp. Today, Your people framed the Alliance army, causing 5,000 saints and the Holy Emperor to die in battle within 6 hours. I'm just asking for an explanation, and I've become the sinner of the continent. Other than slapping labels, can the 3 Holy Lands still have some shame? Everyone who was looked at by him lowered their heads in shame. Was what Jun Moxie said not reasonable? No, what Jun Moxie said should be too reasonable. It was because of their loftiness that the 3 Holy Lands had fallen to such a state. If we lose this battle and the human civilization falls into decline, then who is the biggest sinner? Jun Moxie retorted. Who is the main culprit that caused the strange races to invade the Xian continent? Who is the mastermind behind the weakening of the continent? Is it me? If it's not me, then who is it? It's not you, it's us. Gu Han's face immediately turned haggard. He sighed deeply and said gloomily, "We are the sinners of the continent." His sharp eyes suddenly became lifeless. He raised his head to look at the sky and suddenly laughed bitterly. It turns out that the Holy Land, which has always been dedicated to protecting the peace of the continent for more than 10,000 years, has actually become the biggest sinner? How ironic is this? Not only Gu Han, even Mo Wudao and the rest felt as if they had been struck by lightning. They were struck dumb by Jun Moxie's earth-shattering words, standing rooted to the ground in a daze. Their faces were completely devoid of their usual vigor. So, the nameless hero that had protected the Xian continent actually had another identity, training soldiers for the strange races. To make those perverted trash even sharper, even stronger, and to cause the Xian continent to fall. Could it be that these 10,000 years have been wrong? Gu Han let out a long sigh, not knowing if he was asking someone else or himself. His voice was so soft that even he could not hear it. Then, he turned around and slowly walked towards a place where there were no traces of people. He walked from afar, step by step, slowly and solemnly. He came to a spacious area in the distance and sat down cross-legged with his eyes closed, not moving at all. Mei Shuiyin furrowed her brows as she contemplated Jun Moxie's words. Was Jun Moxie's words correct? Naturally, it was correct, but it was not absolutely correct. At least, it was not completely correct. In these tens of thousands of years, the 3 Holy Lands had given their all to protect the human race and the Xian continent. This was an achievement that no one could deny. Even if there was Xiazi, it couldn't be completely denied, not even by anyone. But it was also because the 3 Holy Lands placed too much importance on this achievement, this glory, and in order to enjoy this glory alone, they used all sorts of methods, ultimately leading to the Xian continent's overall weakness. Once a person thought too highly of himself, he would consider everything beneath his notice. In order to maintain their transcendent position, the 3 Holy Lands did not wish for anyone or any power to share their achievements. Thus, they used all sorts of methods to attack other powers. In reality, other than the 3 Holy Lands and Tianfa, there were many other powerful powers that rose up in the Xian continent in these tens of thousands of years. But because the 3 Holy Lands did not allow any more powerful powers to appear, they killed them one by one. The reason why Tianfa was spared was because they were not humans in their bones. They would never be able to share the glory of the 3 Holy Lands protecting the human race. That was why they were able to survive until now, until the appearance of Jun Moxie. Don't think too much. That will only make things difficult for yourself. Jun Moxie looked at her. How can the so-called merits and demerits be so easily determined? It has never been determined by one person's words. All the merits and demerits of 1,000 years are just fleeting clouds. They are all reasons that humans use to convince themselves to do something. Mei Shuiyin's body shook as she stared at him. Her heart was in turmoil. In the battle just now, I've exhausted a lot of my energy. I need to rest for a while. Just in case. Jun Moxie said, "Take this sword with you. If the strange races come to invade, you just need to throw it out. I believe that it has the ability to deal with most of the dangers." With a flip of Jun Moxie's hand, the blood of yellow flame appeared in his hand. With a light hum, it flew into Mei Shuiyin's hand on its own. The blade of the sword was held horizontally, naturally displaying a domineering stance. In that instant, Mei Xuan suddenly had an extremely strange feeling. It was as if the sword was greeting her. A voice even appeared in the lake of her heart. "Hi, beautiful lady, how are you?" Mei Xuan was absolutely sure that there was no sound coming from the sword. But that voice, or that feeling, had directly entered the lake of her heart. It made her deeply feel that this was definitely not an auditory hallucination. Mei Xuan was shocked. She looked at the sword in bewilderment and disbelief in her eyes. "Beautiful lady, there's no need to look. It's really me." The resplendent light on the sword shone once more. It was as if there was a mischievous child blinking its eyes. And in Mei Xuan's heart, she could clearly feel this point. This shock was no small matter. She felt her hand tremble, and the sword almost fell. She hurriedly turned to look at Jun Moxie. Only then did she realize that Jun Moxie had already disappeared. Right now, the blood of Yellow Flame, after swallowing so much heaven and earth spiritual chi, and then swallowing all the blood essence and soul cultivation of a Saint Monarch, had already surpassed Jun Moxie in terms of battle strength. Of course, the so-called surpassing was referring to Jun Moxie without using those sacred arts. Otherwise, as long as Jun Dashao activated his 5 elements sacred art, he would still be able to easily subdue the blood of Yellow Flame. But this kind of suppression only appeared on Jun Moxie alone. With the blood of Yellow Flame's current strength, experts below the 3rd level of Saint Monarch were not even in its eyes. For Gu Han, even if he used all his strength to deal with the blood of Yellow Flame, it would still be difficult for him to gain any advantage. If he was not careful, he might even fall under the blood of Yellow Flame's sword. With him protecting Mei Xuan and the rest, Jun Moxie was naturally very assured. So without any hesitation, he directly entered the Hongjun Pagoda to recuperate. Right now, the most important thing was to treat his injuries as soon as possible. When Mei Xuan was with Jun Moxie, she had seen the blood of Yellow Flame countless times. She could be said to be extremely familiar with this sword. But she had never imagined that this sword could actually be so demonic. Was this still a sword? This was simply a demon sword, a demonic sword. Aya, beautiful lady, although this sword is handsome, elegant, beautiful, lovable, and easy to make people fall in love at first sight. Beautiful lady, you don't have to be so excited, right? The blood of Yellow Flame originally wanted to say it's this lord, but immediately felt that it was a little inappropriate to call himself this lord in front of a peerless beauty. Furthermore, with the relationship between this beauty and its master, its arrogance would lead to serious consequences. So it very sensibly changed its form of address. "It's really you who's speaking? And what I mean is, it's you who's communicating with my heart." Mei Xuan's beautiful eyes widened, and she couldn't help but ask with uncertainty. "AI?" The blood of Yellow Flame sighed. "Beautiful sister, how can you say that? No matter what, we're old acquaintances. We've already met more than once or twice. You're actually so unfamiliar with this lord, with this sword, acting as if you don't know me. This is really too boring. This sword is really too sad." After saying that, it actually did a somersault in Mei Xuan's hand, scattering a brilliant sword flower in the air, forming the shape of a huge lotus. The lotus gradually bloomed, and it was so beautiful that it was too much for one's eyes to take in. It was a certain sword that was using its actions to express its depression of being ignored. Then, a certain sword pointed downwards, and with a schwa sound, it landed vertically in Mei Xuan's palm. With the sharp sword tip of the blood of Yellow Flame, it suddenly stabbed into Mei Xuan's slender hand, but Mei Xuan didn't feel any pain at all. This scene, in the eyes of outsiders, was like Mei Xuan holding Jun Moxie's sword, giving an extremely beautiful performance. Everyone couldn't help but sigh in admiration. This level of swordsmanship is truly unparalleled. One couldn't help but be impressed. "Beautiful sister, you believe me now, right?" "Ha kikik." The blood of Yellow Flame's consciousness laughed delightedly, and it was obviously imitating Jun Moxie's voice. The only person it was familiar with was Jun Dashao. Even if it wanted to imitate someone else, it didn't seem to be able to. Mei Xuan finally confirmed it, finally believed it. Although she acknowledged it rationally, her emotions were still a little hazy. She felt like she was dreaming, and she couldn't help but sigh in admiration. You imitated Emosia's voice really well. I really thought that Emosia was pranking me just now. Naturally, her voice was very, very soft. Otherwise, if others heard it, they would think that this Tian Fa Emperor had gone crazy. That's right, if I still can't imitate that fellow's voice, then I would have really been abused by him for nothing. You don't know back then. Other than the pride in its voice, the blood of Yellow Flame's voice was filled with regret towards the end. And did Emosia abuse you? Mei Shuiyan was shocked. AI, it's really unbearable to recall the past. Every time I mention it, it's all blood and tears. The blood of Yellow Flame's voice was so heavy that it could make one cry. Hammer after hammer, truly cutting me? Mei Shuiyan rolled her eyes. This is the so-called abuse? You're a sword, all right? If you don't hammer after hammer, how are you going to temper yourself? How are you going to take form? But she still consoled. He did that for you, for your own good, Wu. I know, I understand, but I'm really in pain. It's not fake. The blood of Yellow Flame said tearfully. Mei Shuiyan was completely speechless. This sword's mood clearly changed very quickly. A moment ago, it was still crying, but suddenly, it was in high spirits. And, beauty, how about this? I carry you on my back and we fly one round? Let's go for a ride. Carry me on your back and fly one round? Go for a ride? Mei Shuiyan felt a little dizzy. What ride? Chapter 1172. Mei Shuiyan shuddered at the image she had conjured up in her mind. Most importantly, it was too dangerous. With the sharpness of the blood of Yellow Flame, there was probably nothing in this world that could face it head-on. I didn't say it clearly just now. It should be you stepping on me, and I'll bring you flying. The blood of Yellow Flame had a strong desire to show off. Let's fly to the other side of the mountain for a stroll. Who knows, we might even be able to kill a few strange races, Saint Venerables and Saint Monarchs, to nourish ourselves. This is killing two birds with one stone. Are you satisfied? Be happy. Be happy. What? No way. Mei Shuiyan jumped in fright. Like master, like sword, like bird. This sentence was really a famous saying. It was really not wrong at all. This blood of Yellow Flame was as arrogant as Jun Moxie. No, even Jun Dashao was not as arrogant as him. To actually say something like killing a few Saint Venerables and Saint Monarchs to nourish themselves? What was this? What was the meaning of it? There was no need to nourish themselves like that, right? Besides, going to the other side of the mountain, that was their territory. The only result of going there would be them using themselves to nourish themselves, right? Don't worry, nothing will happen. I'm here. I'll handle everything. I guarantee that you'll go there valiantly and return with an awe-inspiring aura. The blood of Yellow Flame tried its best to encourage her. This fellow was usually restricted by Jun Moxie too much. This time, he finally came out on his own, but Jun Moxie wasn't around. This was such a good opportunity. How could he miss it? No way, there's no room for discussion. Mei Shuiyan rejected it without hesitation. No need to say any more. Then, she grabbed the hilt of the sword and walked back to the army. Hey, beautiful sister, let's discuss this again. I'm very powerful, you don't know, but who in this world can withstand a blow from this sword? The blood of Yellow Flame continued to encourage her, but Mei Shuiyan turned a deaf ear and walked back. He allowed this fellow to tirelessly bombard his consciousness. No matter how much he tried to convince her, he still couldn't agree. Long Crane immediately dispatched the warriors of the Crane tribe. 10 people in a team, and stop every 1,000 miles. They formed observation points around the entire Pillar of Heaven's mountains, keeping a close eye on the movements of the outsiders. If there are any changes, immediately inform me with the soaring dragon. Mei Shuiyan didn't stop and immediately made arrangements. Yes. The Crane King stood up and was about to walk out of the room. Wait a moment. Choose a black crane that flies at a faster speed and return to where we came from. Urge Leonis and company to speed up. You must meet up as soon as possible. Yes. Send another Xian crane to return to the mainland as soon as possible and contact the Dongfang family, Sikong family, Duanmu family, and Blizzard Silver City. Tell them to immediately spread the news of the strange races invading the Xian continent, as well as the dangerous situation of the war for seizing the heavens. Immediately summon all the cultivators above the Tian Xian level to come and help. Also, order all the 9th level Xian beasts in the Tian Fa forest to come here immediately. All of them. As she said that, Mei Xuan suddenly raised her voice and said to the 3 holy lands, Mo Wudao. Send a few people to go back with my brothers and inform the affiliated families of the 3 holy lands. All the experts above the Tian Xian level must come and join the battle. I'll make the arrangements immediately. On this matter, Mo Wudao didn't dare to be negligent. Without any hesitation, he immediately sent his most capable men to Tian Fa. Bear King, Tiger King, immediately gather all the men and prepare for battle. No matter what movements there are, the 2 of you lead your men to deal with them immediately. Yes, big sister. The 2 kings' eyes were bloodshot as they answered loudly. Solitary Eagle, Feng Wan Yun. Please lead your men from the evil Monarch Manor and cooperate with Tiger King and Bear King. Yes. The 2 of them had a serious look on their faces as they hurriedly answered. Bailey Luo Yun, Lung Ao, I won't give you any direction or area of action. The 2 of you will lead your men and move freely from this moment onwards. Kill the strange races as the top priority. With a command, the flock of Xian cranes rose into the sky. As their wings fluttered, they flew far away and disappeared into the clouds. I hope we can make it in time. Mei Xuan looked at the fading shadows of the Xian cranes in the sky, her face full of worry as she mumbled to herself. As Mei Xuan gave a few more orders, the atmosphere became heavy once again, and it became more and more intense. What on earth were those detestable 2-headed conjoined freaks thinking about in the fog-covered territory of the non-human kind? The only thing that was certain was that those detestable fellows were definitely gathering their own forces now. And deploying. Once the time was ripe, they would launch a frenzied attack. At that time, they would move in an organized and disciplined manner. They would no longer charge forward like a bunch of loose sand like before. At that time, there would definitely be an earth-shattering battle. Mei Xuan looked longingly at her brothers in front of her, as well as the countless Tian Fa warriors who were busy with their tasks. At that time, how many of her brothers would fall into eternal slumber on this land? Thinking of this, Mei Xuan only felt waves of pain in her heart. How good would it be if there were no strange races in this world? In another situation, Jun Moxie sat cross-legged in the Hongjun Pagoda. Countless strands of primordial purple qi rushed into his body like a tsunami, cleansing his body, washing his meridians, and healing his injuries. When he first came in, Jun Moxie ate a set of 7 colored holy fruits and a piece of exquisite lotus root without a word. Then, when his injuries were slightly healed, he made up his mind and swallowed a drop of golden jade fluid. The battle was imminent, and his current strength was still lacking. He needed to improve it further. Otherwise, this battle would still bode ill rather than well. Jun Moxie decided that when he came out, he would use the spirit vein fragments to improve the strength of the Tian Fa warriors as a whole. Even if they would die under the heavenly tribulation in the future, it was better than dying here now. The most important thing was to deal with the battle before them. In a flash, 3 days had passed. There was no movement from the strange races at all. Such an unexpected silence made even the people from the 3 holy lands feel that it was abnormal. This group of fellows, how could they be so calm this time? The Xian Crane tribe, who was in charge of security along the way, also did not send any warnings. After 3 days of eruption, the volcano had already been completely extinguished. The temperature was naturally dropping rapidly. Although the temperature was still unbearably hot, it was already much better than a few days ago. And Jun Dashao had already come out of seclusion last night. In these few days, the people from the 3 holy lands were all resting and didn't come to disturb them. Both sides were on their own, not interfering with each other's business. Everyone seemed to have become mute in these few days. Even if there was something that they needed to talk about, they would use voice transmissions instead of meeting each other. Since it would be awkward to meet each other, they might as well not meet each other. This way, they could save a lot of unnecessary trouble. There was only silence. Both sides seemed to be waiting for that moment of glory to erupt. In fact, even when Jun Moxie reappeared, this silent situation had not changed at all. But the moment Jun Dashao appeared, countless bolts of lightning immediately followed. The answer was obvious. The lightning tribulation had arrived again. Under the powerful effects of the 7-colored holy fruit, the exquisite jade lotus, and the golden jade fluid, Jun Dashao's cultivation had risen once again. And it directly rose to the peak of the 4th level of Saint Monarch realm. It wasn't that Jun Moxie himself was amazing, but that he was really too generous. If the golden jade fluid that was used on Jun Dashao's body was used to refine medicine, it could at least raise the strength of a 1,000-man Tianxian army to Xin Xian's level. The increase in strength also meant that the lightning tribulation was coming. The situation of Jun Dashao's tribulation was directly turned into a performance. Even Gu Han, who had been sitting motionless for the past few days, also came to watch. It was too outrageous. It was really outrageous. Countless spectators involuntarily had the urge to die when Jun Moxie was going through the tribulation. In this world, there was actually someone who went through the tribulation in a state of deep sleep. Under the lightning and thunder, Jun Moxie was lying on a recliner that had been taken out of nowhere, sleeping soundly. The lightning that filled the skies struck his head and body. The lightning tribulation could be said to be abnormally accurate. Not a single one was wasted, and all of them hit their targets. But at the same time when they hit their targets, they strangely disappeared. Until the end of the tribulation, the bamboo recliner under Jun Moxie's buttocks was still as green as before, and there seemed to be no signs of blackening. What did this mean? It meant that all the lightning tribulation did not overflow onto the recliner at all. All of it was easily dissipated by Jun Dashao, and not a single drop was missed. Was this possible? Since the beginning of time, there had never been such a situation. But this impossible thing had happened right in front of everyone's eyes. Under the stares of everyone who looked as if they had seen a ghost, Jun Dashao's snoring finally stopped. He stretched and sat up from the recliner, looking a little dazed. He yawned, rubbed his eyes, and said, "A good sleep, really comfortable." Then he suddenly raised his head to look at the clear sky, and smacked his lips, as if he had not had enough, and said, "The lightning tribulation is over? It's over just like that? It's over just like that?" This sentence made everyone who had gone through the tribulation feel an urge to faint, and they almost wanted to bang their heads against the wall. Isn't this too sick? What kind of explanation is this? He used such a strange method to go through the tribulation, and he actually succeeded. Thinking back to the time when he went through the tribulation, that thrilling experience of narrowly escaping death, enduring the immense pain that felt as if a dozen layers of skin had been peeled off while he was still alive. Then look at him, after sleeping, only his clothes were a little wrinkled, but his face was glowing, and he was full of energy. Isn't the gap between us too big? I really don't have the face to live anymore. It said that the strange races are all sick, but the real biggest sick person is obviously this Jun Moxie. I can't find any words to describe it. It really makes me speechless. Chapter 1173. What? Aren't these words pointing at our noses and saying that our characters are not good? This fellow's standard of scolding people in circles is really not low. But you're a person who has overturned a boat full of people, you're going to incur the wrath of the public in an instant. The crowd became agitated and began to speak out. You're saying that your character is good? If a person like you can be considered as having a good character, then everyone in the world is a saint. Gu Han looked at Jun Moxie in disbelief and gritted his teeth. Do you even know the meaning of the word character? Character is a very mysterious thing. I can't be bothered to explain it to you. Jun Moxie shook his head in a very arrogant manner. Then he sat down on the recliner, and the recliner under his body flew up as if it was a feather, and carried him into the interior of Tian Fa's camp. This old man dares to bet that you don't know what character is. Gu Han's spittle flew everywhere as he scolded. Then he went back to meditate resentfully. This is too much of a blow. From a Saint Venerable to a third-level Saint Monarch, he had spent over 1,000 years of time. Countless times he had narrowly escaped death, countless times he had hovered on the edge of life and death, countless times he had almost died, and countless times he had escaped death. But this brat was clearly only a Saint Venerable a few days ago. But after a few days of sleep, he had passed the lightning tribulation, and he could no longer see through his cultivation. That could only mean one thing. This brat's current strength had already surpassed him. Where was there such a relaxing and easy way to level up? Gu Han's heart was filled with shock, and he was even more aggrieved. Sleep, sleep, sleep first to soothe your emotions. At least out of sight, out of mind, out of mind. So this world also had the huge spirit. But Saint Monarch Gu was destined to be disappointed, because he did not rest for the entire night. One moment, there would be a wave of heaven and earth essence chi, and the next moment, there would be a wave of heaven and earth spiritual chi disorder. It would really be strange if he could really sleep. As for adjusting his emotions, that was even more bullshit. What was even more ridiculous was that in the morning of the next day, when the sky started to turn white, an abnormally dense pressure of heaven and earth descended, causing Gu Han, who was in a meditative state, to jump up abruptly. He looked at the sky in horror, his eyeballs almost popping out of their sockets. The pillar of heaven's mountains had already collapsed. Was the sky going to collapse as well? How could there be such an intense pressure? With such intensity, even a Saint Monarch's lightning tribulation pressure wouldn't be able to compare. Gu Han himself was a third-grade Saint Monarch, and he was fortunate enough to witness Jun Dashao's tribulation yesterday. He could roughly estimate the level of lightning tribulation that a fourth-grade Saint Monarch would have to go through. However, the pressure in front of him was at least 10 times stronger than that. What was going on? How could there be such a terrifying existence in this world? Suddenly, a strange thought flashed through Gu Han's mind. Could it be? Everyone from the 3 holy lands raised their heads and looked at the dark clouds gathering in the sky. Each and every one of them was indescribably alarmed. Tribulation clouds. Countless tribulation clouds. Boundless tribulation clouds. Densely packed, layer upon layer, covering the sky and covering the earth. Clumps, clumps, clumps. They completely covered the sky that had just begun to turn white. One after another, gigantic eyes slowly formed within the swirling clouds. They coldly stared at the ant-like humans below. What's going on? Gu Han leaped up, waving his hands like a madman as he roared, "What the fuck is going on here?" It was actually the possibility that he had imagined. It was also the thing that should not have happened. It really came at the wrong time. Boss Gu had completely lost his composure. No wonder Boss Gu had lost his composure like that. This matter was really too ridiculous. The tribulation eyes in the sky were densely packed, and there were almost tens of thousands of them. The dark clouds were dense, layer by layer accumulating and rolling, almost covering the top of their heads. Even with Gu Han's over 3,000 years of experience, he had never seen such a phenomenon before. Tribulation, it had always been the matter of a single person. Since ancient times, it was rare for 2 people to undergo tribulation at the same time. As for more people undergoing tribulation at the same time, it had almost never happened before. The reason why it was said to have almost never happened was because a few thousand years ago, the leader of a powerful faction had arranged for many experts to block the tribulation for his son in order to ensure that he could safely undergo the tribulation. But who would have thought that it was originally only a venerable level lightning tribulation? Because someone had interfered with the lightning tribulation, the power of the lightning tribulation became stronger and stronger, and it became harder and harder to resist. In the end, that super powerful sect leader even sacrificed himself and the powerful force he had created, but he still couldn't pass through that lightning tribulation. If it was only a single person's tribulation, no matter what realm that person's strength had reached, or even if the 9 nether first young master appeared in the world and underwent the tribulation personally, it might not be as powerful. The situation before them was obviously not the tribulation of one or two people. It was at least hundreds or thousands of people undergoing tribulation at the same time. The most obvious evidence was in the sky. The countless savage eyes were the best proof. Tribulation lightning, no matter how strong or weak, would only take one look. Gu Han's heart was filled with shock. He immediately took a deep breath and wanted to fly up to survey the surroundings, hoping to find a safer place to hide. The lightning tribulation before them was so powerful, the attack range would definitely not be small. If the people of the three holy lands were to be implicated, then they would be the real innocent ones. But his body had only risen to a height of 50 zhang when he suddenly grunted and was smashed down to the ground by the pressure of the heavens. The power of tens of thousands of heavenly tribulations had actually suppressed a Saint Monarch to the point that he could not jump. This time, Gu Han was truly shocked. These heavenly tribulations were already so powerful before they even descended. If all of them were to descend, not to mention those who were undergoing the tribulation first, even he, as a bystander, might not be able to survive this tribulation. Looking at the area covered by the heavenly tribulations, even if the pillar of heaven's mountains did not collapse because of the previous accident, but with this scene, the entire pillar of heaven's mountains would definitely be destroyed. The people gathered here could be said to be the last force that the Xian continent could send out to fight against the strange races. If they were to be destroyed, then it would really be the end of the Xian continent. Gu Han fell into a state of panic and helplessness. He was so anxious that he was pounding his chest and sighing repeatedly, completely losing his composure. "Old Gu, look over there." Mo Wudao sat on the ground and stretched out his hand, pointing in the direction of the Tian Fa forest encampment. Don't look at how Gu Han was pounding his chest and sighing. Apart from this old man from the three holy lands, there was no one else who could stand up straight. As for the venerable Mo Wudao, great sect leader Mo, he was in an even worse state right now. He did not have the slightest bit of his usual composure and image. Under this unprecedented fear, everyone fell to the ground on their butts at the same time. If you didn't prostrate on the ground, then you'd be lucky. Gu Han turned his head and saw that all the soldiers in the Tian Fa forest encampment were huddled together, sitting cross-legged with their eyes closed, their faces solemn. As if waiting for something to happen. Could it be that everything in front of us is caused by them? Gu Han was dumbfounded. Then he flew into a rage. Bastard! Nonsense! Who goes through a tribulation like this? This is obviously using their lives as a joke. Everyone huddled together, waiting for the heavenly tribulations to turn them into stuffed buns. Are they really going to repeat the tragedy from thousands of years ago? And from the looks of it, it seems like they've all broken through. But how is this possible? Everyone's cultivation is different. How can they all go through the tribulation at the same time? Could it be that they all broke through in a single night? Cheng Yinzhao's cultivation was not very good among this group of people. Right now, he was lying on the ground with a face full of disbelief. The sky suddenly darkened, as if night had descended once again. All of the tribulation clouds pressed down at the same time. The dense lightning bolts were visible to the naked eye as they scurried back and forth in the dark clouds, emitting a piercing sound. It was as if a blunt knife was slowly sawing at a person's bones. Gu Han's hair suddenly stood on end. He was the only one who could still move, and the only one who had a chance to escape. But at this moment, this old man had fallen into a state of mental breakdown. His faith had crumbled, and the thing he had protected his entire life was about to crumble. Just at this moment, a white shadow floated up and turned nimbly in midair. Then, it steadily stopped about 100 feet above the Tian Fa warriors' heads. It did not move, and stood there motionlessly. His clothes were whiter than snow, and he stood silently in the air, not moving at all. Right now, there wasn't even a hint of wind in the entire sky. It was so silent that it was like a painting. Apart from large amounts of lightning bolts, there was no other movement. Jun Moxie, how can he still move? He can still fly? Gu Han's eyes were wide open, unable to comprehend. At most, he could only maintain a certain amount of movement. Even if June Moxie was stronger than him, it shouldn't be by this much, right? Could it be that there was still a chance to turn things around? Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, June Dashao raised his head, his black hair fluttering. But he quietly stretched out his hands, making a hugging gesture, embracing the sky. A voice that sounded like an ancient chant suddenly appeared, exceptionally ethereal and agile. Gu Han's mouth twitched. This June Dashao's acting was really too pretentious. When your head. Who do you think you are? You say it will come? Do you really think you're a god? Then when come? Is it going to rain in the next moment? But in the next moment, Gu Han's eyes widened like a bull's. They almost shot out of his eye sockets. Because after June Dashao said those words, in the originally frozen sky, suddenly, there was wind. There really was wind. A small gust of wind blew. It blew June Moxie's jet-black hair and fluttered his fluttering clothes. At this moment, June Dashao's image could only be described with one word: floating like an immortal. Absolutely, a classic example of floating like an immortal. The wind is really coming. Gu Han's mouth went completely petrified. Chapter 1174. His brain also short-circuited. This really came? With a single summon from him, this wind actually listened to his command? Gu Han shook his head, as if trying his best to shake off this unrealistic fantasy. Or maybe it's a coincidence. It's so early in the morning, what's so strange about a bit of wind? It must be a coincidence. But in the next moment, June Moxie furrowed his brows, as if unsatisfied. Then he waved his hand with an air of a fraud and said, "The wind is too weak. Stronger, stronger." With a whoosh, the gentle breeze instantly turned into a gale. Instantly, the flag fluttered in the wind. Stronger, stronger, stronger. Finally, as if under June Moxie's urging, the sound of the wind grew louder and louder. In the end, it had already become a hurricane. A hurricane that was at least above the 9th level. It let out a sharp and mournful howl, like an ancient giant beast, sweeping across the sky and wreaking havoc. Gu Han's mouth was wide open as he looked at June Moxie, who was still standing firmly in the strong wind. He let out 2 cries of ah 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 and directly fell to the ground headfirst. This was definitely not a coincidence. But how was he supposed to explain everything in front of him? And I understand I must be dreaming right now. Since it's a dream, I'd better continue sleeping. Everything in front of him was really too unreal. But, in the next moment, a loud rumble completely woke him up. The lightning tribulation had officially begun to show its might. Gu Han finally could not help but struggle up and look over. Only to see the first meandering bolt of lightning breaking out from the clouds and smashing down fiercely. Even a grain of rice can release its splendor. Young Master June shook his head with a smug and arrogant attitude. He curled his lips in a very disdainful manner and said with disdain. Then he pointed his right hand upwards and shouted softly, "Retract." With a whoosh, the bolt of lightning that had just descended disappeared just like that. It really disappeared at the sound of his voice. Gulp. Those from the 3 holy lands who had personally witnessed this scene all swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Then, the next thing they did was to rub their eyes in unison. I must be seeing things. Damn it, I've been under too much pressure recently. I'm actually hallucinating. However, the first time might be an illusion, but what about the second time? What about the nth time? The tribulation lightning in the sky also seemed to be completely enraged by June Dashao's arrogance. Lightning fell from all directions like a rainstorm. The entire sky was lit up by the crackling of the sun. June Dashao kept shouting and waving his arms and legs, jumping around in the air in a self-righteous manner. She even purposely made an orchid gesture and coquettishly said, "Take, fuck, withdraw, return, collect, 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 rumble." The eyes of the people below twitched, and their eyeballs almost cramped. Finally, someone couldn't take the mental blow anymore. He foamed at the mouth and fell to the ground with a thud. This was too much of a blow. Other than being a blow, This was too disgusting. Guhan's face darkened as he looked at a certain flashy figure in the sky. He couldn't help but have the urge to faint and vomit. I know you're capable, I know you're capable, I know you're amazing, but you don't have to show off like this, right? Aren't you tired from jumping around like this? I'm tired from watching you. To be honest, young Master June was indeed tired from flying in the air. There was a price to pay for showing off. Although June Dashao was very happy to show off like this, but it couldn't be endless. However, the collective heavenly tribulation this time seemed to be endless. Of course, there were many benefits to continuing the lightning tribulation. Under such a huge tribulation, before the tribulation completely disappeared, the strange races definitely wouldn't dare to make a move. However, young Master June was tired of showing off, and couldn't bring himself to show off anymore. June Moxie's original intention was to let so many warriors advance at once and show off a miracle. This would undoubtedly raise the morale and confidence of victory. This kind of thinking was good, and it had achieved good results. A great battle was about to arrive, and a freak like June Dashao who could easily resist the heavenly tribulation appeared on their side. And it was an ultimate heavenly tribulation of thousands of people. He was able to resist it alone, and he even passed it. What kind of godly might was required? What kind of strength? With a leader like this, what battle could they not win? The results were indeed good, and it was better than expected. Right now, not only Tian Fa's warriors, even those experts from the 3 Holy Lands who were originally pessimistic and disappointed, suddenly had a lot of hope in them. But the duration of the tribulation this time was a little too long. It was so long that June Dashao was already a little annoyed. Although it was easy, putting on an act once or twice was still showing off, and it was very satisfying. But if it was too much, the act would become a clown's amusement. After this continued for about 2 hours, the pretentious June Dashao directly stopped breathing. I'm not going to put on that Western scene anymore. Damn it, I'll do whatever I want. In any case, this matter isn't up to me. It's just the Hongjun Pagoda automatically collecting the lightning energy. What has it got to do with me? I'm just a decoration. This guy was just putting on an act from the start. In fact, after he gave the warriors the elixirs and confirmed that everyone could break through, there was basically nothing left for him to do. After breaking through, the Hongjun Pagoda was ready the moment the aura of the warriors spread out. After confirming that everyone had broken through, the Hongjun Pagoda automatically set up something that looked like a huge screen above everyone's heads. Apart from young Master June, no one else would be able to see or feel this thing. Actually, June Moxie couldn't see it either, but he could clearly feel it. It was probably because there were too many people undergoing the tribulation this time, and everyone's grade was rather high. If it was in the past, when would he have seen the Hongjun Pagoda make such preparations? Looking at the Hongjun Pagoda crazily absorbing the energy of the lightning, June Moxie couldn't understand why this mysterious Hongjun Pagoda needed so much lightning energy. Was it purely for energy? That shouldn't be the case. Heaven and earth spiritual chi was also a form of energy, and he didn't see it absorbing so much. In the past, it was only limited to blocking the lightning for him. Now, it had developed to the point that as long as it was lightning, it would not let go of any of it. This was a really strange phenomenon. June Emosia was also exhausted. Showing off and showing off also took a lot of effort. So, he simply sat down in the air, bored to death. He looked up at the sky helplessly, then looked down at the ground, as if he was bored to death. But in the eyes of the people from the 3 Holy Lands, they had the same thought. Looking at this guy, could it be that he had improved after absorbing such a huge amount of lightning energy? Not to mention anything else, just now, he had to make a cut, but now he had directly absorbed it. It was much easier than before. After a while, June Dashao was still tired from sitting, so he simply lay down. Only by lying down could he sleep. Wasn't it better to have a good rest? After a while, a rhythmic snoring sound gradually rang out, eyes wide open. He fell asleep? He actually fell asleep again? Under the awe of the thunder that filled the sky, under the tens of thousands of lightning bolts, he actually fell asleep? Just how strong and resilient did his nerves have to be? Actually, it wasn't his nerves. The main thing was that Jun Dashao was really exhausted. First, it was 3 days of raising his strength with all his might, without any time to rest. Then, he had to undergo his own tribulation, then he had to deal with the noise from the 3 holy lands. Then, he had to help Tian Fa and evil Monarch Manor raise their battle strength non-stop. He was really busy to the point that his feet hit the back of his head. When everyone's heavenly tribulation arrived, Jun Dashao still wanted to show off a little. It would be strange if he wasn't tired after jumping around for so long. Under this level of fatigue, anyone would want to sleep and rest. Why would he care about the lightning? The rumbling sounds in the sky continued for 3 days and 3 nights, tormenting the people from the 3 holy lands until they were close to going crazy. This kind of sound, they couldn't ignore it. This was the sound of the heavenly tribulation, the most dignified and authoritative sound in the world. Most importantly, even if their ears were plugged, the sound would still travel in. But when it came to the 3rd day, everyone was much calmer. It's fine, we'll just get used to it. Anyway, we won't fall behind, so we'll just do what we have to do. As the time of the tribulation slowly passed, the pressure also weakened accordingly. Everyone also gradually got used to it, and they weren't as pathetic as they were at the start. As for Jun Dashao, he had truly rested well in these 3 days and 3 nights. He slept and woke up, and slept again. It was so boring that it was killing him. Anyone could move, but this old man definitely couldn't move. But what else could it be? He placed himself in the center, the most central position. The Hongjun Pagoda naturally followed him. But the moment he reached this position, before the heavenly tribulation ended, he couldn't move at all. He couldn't go anywhere. He could still jump around on the spot, but he definitely couldn't go more than 1 meter away from the heavenly tribulation. The moment he moved away from his current position, the heavenly tribulation wouldn't chase after Jun Dashao. Instead, it would directly land on the heads of those who were undergoing the tribulation. So right now, Jun Moxie couldn't move no matter what. He also couldn't flash into the Hongjun Pagoda. The Hongjun Pagoda was gorging itself. At this moment, he couldn't enter it no matter what. Therefore, he could only wait here. Jun Moxie was a little depressed. This was equivalent to setting up a stage, and he, the famous actor, was prepared to go up and sing a few lines to set off the atmosphere before leaving. But when he started singing, he realized that this stage couldn't be removed. And he, the only main character, couldn't come down. Even if he stopped singing, he still couldn't come down. He just stayed up there for everyone to watch. How could Jun Dashao, who was in such an awkward situation, not feel conflicted? But no matter how conflicted he was, there was nothing he could do. He could only wait. Wait until the heavenly tribulation disappeared automatically. This was also what he deserved. A total of thousands of people undergoing tribulation at the same time. Chapter 1175. Today's 3rd chapter. Make up for the debt, Chapter 20. Debt repaid. From tomorrow onwards, I'll start asking for votes for every single chapter. I've always owed everyone, so I'm too embarrassed to ask for votes for every single chapter. This month, it's been so miserable. I hope that everyone will support me from tomorrow onwards. Thank you. Originally, it was certain that this was unprecedented, but it might not be the last. Jun Dashao still had the ability to create an even bigger scene. But today's awkwardness, even if you beat Jun Dashao to death, he would not do it again. As for the others, even if they had the ability and resources, they might not be willing to be as wasteful as Jun Dashao. So today's grand occasion was unprecedented, and it would be difficult to repeat it again. 3 days later, this unprecedentedly grand yet farcical heavenly tribulation finally came to an end. Jun Moxie's bones were sore from staying up there for so long. At the moment when the heavenly tribulation announced that it had completely stopped, he entered the Hongjun Pagoda with a whoosh. He didn't show his face, whether it was to take a bath, sleep, or even meet the 5th young lady whom he hadn't seen in a long time. The lightning tribulation was over, but for the next half a day, everyone's ears were still ringing with thunder. For 3 consecutive days and 3 nights, there was thunder. And it wasn't any ordinary thunder, it was a heavenly tribulation, even though everyone was already used to it. Young Master Jun's display of extravagance naturally caused a wide range of discussions. Not only the three Holy Lands, even the Tian Fa warriors, who had always admired this powerful brother-in-law of theirs, were still in disbelief at how they had managed to pass through the heavenly tribulation without any danger. Groups of 3 or 5 people clicked their tongues in wonder. Everything else might be fake, but the increase in strength brought about by this heavenly tribulation was something that could not be faked. Feeling the huge increase in strength in their bodies, everyone felt a sense of satisfaction. At this moment, their battle intent was at an unprecedented high. What are the strange races? As long as they dare to come, we will be able to defeat them. And on the strange races side, after waiting for 3 days, there was finally some movement. After all, such a luxurious heavenly tribulation lineup wasn't something that could be seen on a regular basis. Personally witnessing and experiencing Jun Moxi's extraordinary prowess, Gu Han, the #1 expert of the Holy Lands, could not help but feel ashamed of his inferiority. This was not something a normal human could do. Perhaps only the gods in the legends had such vast magical powers. It was a pity that the Holy Lands and Jun Moxi had been enemies for a long time. Now, there were even more incidents where Xia Chang Tian and the rest stood by the side, causing Tian Fa's warriors to be sacrificed. The conflict between the two sides had reached an irreconcilable point. Otherwise, with just Jun Moxi's move, how much damage could the Holy Land recover? How many people would not have to worry about the dangers of the Thunder Tribulation? What a blunder! Just as Gu Han let out a heartfelt sigh and felt a sense of loss, the air in the skies suddenly fluctuated. This strange fluctuation was mixed with an extremely dangerous feeling. Gu Han's eyes flashed and he shouted, "Who is it?" In the air, a hoarse and strange voice laughed lightly. Gu Han is indeed Gu Han. Such extraordinary perception is something that no one else has. Old friend, it's been another 500 years since we last met. How have you been? Gu Han's pupils constricted as he said word by word, "So it's you?" "Ha, of course it's me. Who else could it be other than me?" The air in the sky rippled again. Slowly, the air in the sky began to ripple as well. No one could figure out where exactly this person was hiding. Something as big as the collapse of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains is not something that our divine sun race has been waiting for a day or two. That's an entire 10,000 years of waiting. Now that the Pillar of Heaven's mountains has collapsed, it also officially announces the beginning of the decline of the Xian continent's 3 Holy Lands. Brother Gu Han, we've known each other for a long time. I really cannot bear to see a legend of a generation fall like this. Your Xian continent has a very good saying, "A wise man submits to circumstances." Can't you see the trend now? That strange voice was still faintly discernible. T. What do you mean by the general trend? Gu Han said angrily. If you strange races dare to come in, none of you will be able to leave alive. This is the real trend of the times. AI? That voice seemed to sigh dejectedly. Brother Gu Han, you're still the same as when we first met 3,000 years ago. But it's a pity that your luck is no longer as good as before. He let out a deep sigh and said, Gu Han, do you still remember, before the Pillar of Heaven's mountains was opened, there was a stone tablet there? Others might not know what was recorded on it, or perhaps they don't remember, but you should know, right? Stone tablet? Gu Han's face turned pale. Stone tablet. The time that the faint voice mentioned didn't even have a person like Gu Han. It was truly a long time ago, and not many people knew about it. Even if they knew, they might not remember it. However, in the most ancient and secretive records of the Heaven Saint Palace, there were records of it. On the old site of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, there was once a stone tablet. That stone tablet was personally erected by the #1 person in Xian, the 9 Nether First Young Master. Recorded on it was a prophecy of the 9 Nether First Young Master. But ever since the Pillar of Heaven's mountains suddenly collapsed 8,000 years ago, that stone tablet also mysteriously disappeared. The invisible person in the air sighed lightly. You humans really forget your roots, ah. Such an important matter, but no one remembers it. Even the first seat of the Heaven Saint Palace forgot about it. How lamentable. Nonsense. How could this old man forget? Of course I remember. But I have no obligation to tell you. Gu Han was enraged. Recalling the records on the stone tablet, he couldn't help but sigh helplessly in his heart. Could it be that all of this was really the will of the heavens? Everything was already predetermined. The air trembled, and the demonic voice recited slowly. 9 illusions as emptiness, quicksand as wind, pillar of heavens collapses, 2 sides contend for supremacy, death of the 3 saints, ethereal shadow. A sudden dream, neither illusion nor emptiness. 1,000 years of hegemony, 10,000 years of evil technique. When this voice recited the words on the stone tablet, it was calm and composed, and even carried a hint of respect. Gu Han's face was ashen. That's right, this was the most secretive content of the Heaven Saint Palace. He never would have thought that this strange race person would actually know. Gu Han, you don't have to be too shocked. Although I've known about this content for a long time, I've only completely understood the meaning of it now. The person in the air continued to speak with the demonic voice. Of course, regarding the 9 illusory quicksand, I've already known about it since 3,000 years ago. What? Gu Han's eyes widened. You knew? How did you know? That's not important. That's not important. What's really important is the meaning of the content recorded on the stone tablet. Do you understand? The voice laughed lightly. Gu Han, I believe that with your intelligence, you won't be unable to understand, right? Gu Han sweated profusely, and his voice suddenly became a little hoarse. Sasho Kirima, you don't have to be so smug. Things might not be as you think. Anything is possible. Everything has not come to an end yet. And the person who had spoken in the air was the current leader of the strange races, and also the #1 expert of the strange races. Sasho Kitajima. This person could be considered as an old acquaintance of Gu Han. The war for seizing the heavens for 3,000 years had always been under the control of Gu Han and Sasho Kitajima. That voice chuckled. This time, it was 2 voices laughing mockingly at the same time. One was still eerie and demonic, while the other was like a tinkling bell. 9 illusory emptiness. Quicksand becomes wind. The content of these 2 lines is very simple. The 9 illusory quicksand that had supported the pillar of heaven's mountains for billions of years disappeared due to some unforeseen event. Thus, the pillar of heaven's mountains collapsed. The strange race's Sasho Kitajima laughed happily as he explained patiently. The pillar of heaven's mountains collapsed, and the 2 sides contended for supremacy. You don't need me to explain anything else, right? As for the death of the 3 saints, illusory emptiness at the end, it probably means that your 3 holy lands are about to be destroyed. The strange race's Chuangshang Beidao laughed gloatingly. As for it being a dream, it's neither an illusion nor an illusion. From my understanding of this sentence, it means that the continent that your 3 holy lands have been guarding for a whole 10,000 years is just a long dream. Since it's a dream, you'll wake up sooner or later. Nonsense! Gu Han roared angrily, and his body flashed like a bolt of lightning as he shot into the air. A few bangs rang out, as if someone had exchanged a few blows with Gu Han in the air. Following that, a series of violent ripples appeared in the air. Gu Han floated down to the ground, his eagle-like eyes still staring warily at the sky. Not bad. Looks like you've already grasped my location. However, this is still not enough. The voice in the air changed, as if it came from all directions. Gu Han smiled dejectedly. That's right, it's indeed not enough. Once the other party changed their concealment method, Gu Han would not be able to find them. Gu Han's cultivation was undoubtedly the strongest in the 3 holy lands, but he did not have the all-seeing eye like Qiao Ying, and could not see through the unique concealment method of the strange races. Next, there's the last sentence. In the air, Sasho Kitajima laughed even more happily. Gu Han, I have to say, teasing you like this once every 500 years is indeed very satisfying. I really like this feeling and I never get tired of it. Gu Han snorted coldly. But a pity, every time we fight, You're always the one who escapes the fastest. If you can be as upright as a human, perhaps this old man will look up to you. A pity that you're not qualified to make me do that. Sasho Kitajima cackled. Next, the last sentence, 1,000 years of hegemony, 10,000 years of evil skill, haha. It's obviously saying that our divine sun race can also occupy the continent for 10,000 years. He laughed proudly. You humans have always called our divine sun race an evil existence, and our cultivation techniques are naturally evil as well. This 10,000 years of evil skill is definitely the cultivation technique of our divine sun race? In this regard, we will not shirk our responsibility, and we will not make a mistake. Could it be that you self-proclaimed righteous people are willing to say that your cultivation techniques are very evil? Before this book ends, Feng Ling has a few wishes that I hope everyone can help me with. 1. This book currently has 25.2 million views. I hope it can reach 30 million views before the book ends. 2. This book currently has 386 million recommendation votes. I hope it can reach 5 million before the book ends. 3. This book currently has over 90,000 comments, and the number of replies is about the same. I hope it can reach 100,000 before the book ends. These 3 wishes do not require any money. I hope that my brothers and sisters, no matter where they are reading, can come to Chidian and give me a few free recommendation votes and make a few posts. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1176. His explanation was completely indisputable. Even Gu Han had the same guess in his heart. But how could he admit it? This prophecy came from your ancestor, the 9 Nether First Young Master. This time, Chuangshang Bidao used a bell-like female voice that carried a thick sense of disdain and mockery. I am filled with respect for this old ancestor of yours, and it has always been so. In truth, the entire Divine Sun is filled with the utmost respect for this great existence. We have always only acknowledged the strong, the truly strong. On the other hand, you humans of the continent, the so-called noble humans, how many of you truly respect the 9 Nether First Young Master? Gu Han's body shook, and he couldn't help but take a step back, his face pale. You guys practice the skills passed down by him, and use his mental cultivation to become stronger. But you still refuse to acknowledge the position of his ancestor. At least, you refuse to respect the 9 Nether First Young Master as your ancestor. What is the reason for this? I have never been able to understand this point. The female voice of Sasho Kitajima said faintly. Your continent has a saying, deceiving one's master and destroying one's ancestors. I don't know if your actions can be considered as deceiving one's master and destroying one's ancestors? Or perhaps I have misunderstood the meaning of this saying. Gu Han was stunned when he heard that, and then he was stupefied. After a while, his entire body was drenched in sweat. Indeed, the 9 Nether First Young Master had conquered the entire Xian continent, and the entire continent had implemented the 9 Nether First Young Master's techniques. But in the current Xian continent, how many people truly respected the 9 Nether First Young Master as their ancestor? Deceiving one's master and destroying one's ancestors might be a little too much. But it was more or less the same. In the current continent, there was not a single ancestral temple dedicated to the 9 Nether First Young Master. It was rather funny. The 9 Nether First Young Master, a legend who had left behind so many things for this continent, did not even have an ancestral temple dedicated to him. The reason was simple. Although the 9 Nether First Young Master was powerful and unparalleled, but he was ultimately someone from another world. He would forever be someone who was separated from the Xian continent. And there was another point. He was a conqueror, and this continent was the target of his conquest. Because of this contradiction that could never be reconciled. So, as long as the 9 Nether First Young Master existed, the continent would still be under his rule. But once he was gone, everything would be over. No one will constantly remind future generations that in this world, there was once a person who conquered the entire continent. Apart from the fact that he had to be mentioned due to the inheritance of Xian skills, There weren't many people in the entire Xian continent who knew of the 9 Nether First Young Master, isn't that so? The female voice, Sasho Kidima, said mockingly, over there, no matter who you are, as long as you are strong, you will be respected, the most thorough respect. As for you, you cultivated the 9 Nether First Young Master's cultivation technique and used it to hunt down the 9 Nether First Young Master's descendant. Even we would not do such a thing. But you did it, and you even did it with a clear conscience. I don't know, or perhaps I don't understand, is this your so-called way of repaying a debt of gratitude? Gu Han's face was livid as he said, nonsense, what do you know? But in his heart, he was thinking, the strange races have never personally come to the continent, so how do they know about these things? Even if there are spies, they would definitely not be able to pass the information. We only know that the people of the continent are ungrateful, deceiving their masters and killing their ancestors. That is enough. Sasho Kitajima chuckled. We are here to exterminate you, on behalf of the heavens. Bullsh *T. Gu Han finally exploded. Sasho Kitajima. If you have the guts, show yourself and fight to the death with this old man. Fight to the death? No, now is not the time. Sasho Kitajima changed his voice again, switching to that eerie male voice. Today, I only came to take a look, purely out of curiosity. I have no other intentions. He suddenly paused and looked at all the Tian Fa and Holy Land troops within 1,000 miles. A trace of disdain flashed in his eyes before he asked, Gu Han, what was that terrifying pressure that suddenly appeared in the past 3 days? In the past 3 days, not only were the experts on this side unable to move, even the experts of the strange races were unable to get close. Even Sasho Kitajima himself could only come here after the pressure had completely passed. This matter caused the entire strange races to panic. So this is why you're here. Gu Han suddenly burst into laughter, finally understanding the purpose of his visit, and said, don't you think it's very scary? Difficult to resist? Are you afraid? To think that he actually managed to turn the tables on this topic. That's right, this level of heavenly pressure is indeed very terrifying. I believe this is something that no one can deny. That's why I'm here to ask this time. Why did such a thing happen? Sasho Kitajima did not deny it. He was indeed a little afraid in his heart. This time, he had indeed come purely for this matter. If that aura just now was caused by a single person undergoing a tribulation, then facing such a person, the entire Divine Sun race could do nothing but be slaughtered. They might as well just stay in the race and wait for the next opportunity. After tens of thousands of years, the strange races were already used to waiting. You really want to know? Gu Han laughed heartily. Nonsense, if I don't want to know, why would I come all the way here to find you? Do you really think that I miss you so much? Sasho Kitajima was a little exasperated as he said impatiently. Since you want to know so much? I'm not going to tell you. Gu Han suddenly laughed heartily. Idiot. Sasho Kitajima was completely enraged. He was the one who teased Gu Han just now. Now that the tables had turned, he was the one being teased instead. How could he not be angry? The female voice cursed and was about to attack. But for some reason she did not attack. The air in the air rippled violently. Then, Sasho Kitajima's voice suddenly became heavy. Is someone undergoing a tribulation? Gu Han snorted and did not comment. Can't you tell if it's a tribulation or not? The airflow in the air froze, as if Sasho Kitajima had quietened down. Then, the airflow suddenly became even more turbulent, and the air seemed to become lively again. Gu Han, we'll meet again. Let's rely on our own abilities on the battlefield. Sasho Kitajima Lengling said. Then, with a whoosh, a whirlwind swept up high into the air, leaving a vacuum in the air. Then, it turned into a violent hurricane, like a raging dragon in the air. In an instant, a shadow of over 100 zhang was formed. His aura was so powerful and domineering that it was unbelievable. But when he passed by Tian Fa's troops, he couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. What a majestic Tian Fa warrior! I believe that the losses a few days ago were caused by them. Apart from them, I really don't know of any other battle force that could achieve such a glorious result of a complete victory despite the huge difference in numbers of 1 to 30. Then he looked at Mei Xuan, who was staring at the sky cautiously. What a beautiful girl! Mei Xuan snorted, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. Suddenly she waved her hand, and the blood of yellow flame shot out, its sword light shooting into the sky. A surprised cry rang out in the air, followed by a few clanging sounds of weapons clashing. The blood of yellow flame let out an angry sword hum, and a bright light burst forth, instantly forming a light screen in the air. The light screen rumbled, and a mountain of swords appeared in the air. The sword chi was cold, and the countless people below felt their bodies turn cold. Good sword! The male and female voices of Sasho Kitajima praised at the same time, revealing a strong sense of wariness and fondness. Suddenly, 2 long whistles rang out. One was forceful and sinister, while the other was sharp and melodious. A figure appeared in the sky, then disappeared in a flash. A tornado suddenly swept up into the sky, then twisted in the air and disappeared without a trace. Only a sentence was left in the air, Gu Han. 3 days later, watch as I break through you in an upright and dignified manner. Personally defeat you. Let your Xian people be convinced. Break through you head-on. Personally defeat you. This #1 expert of the strange races truly had a heroic spirit that soared to the heavens. The sword chi of the blood of yellow flame roared, and the tip of the sword trembled. 100 zhang long sword chi formed, and it was about to give chase. Come back! Mei Xuan hurriedly ordered, and waved her hand. The blood of yellow flame roared unwillingly in the air, and only after a long time did it descend unwillingly. It lay quietly in Mei Xuan's jade-like hands, the sword still glinting with a cold light, as if it was extremely unwilling and unwilling. Such a delicious and powerful tonic had slipped away from under its eyes just like that. The blood of yellow flame was extremely disappointed. Why couldn't he let me have a good meal? If I could absorb this 2-headed monster, then how much would I improve? The blood of yellow flame fantasized endlessly, and the edge of the sword clanged. Mei Xuan thought that it was because his battle intent had not dissipated, and that was why it was like this. But who would have thought that it was actually the blood of yellow flame drooling greedily? Just like how human beings would drool after seeing delicious food. Their appetites would be greatly stimulated. Seeing this powerful enemy leave, Gu Han could not help but let out a deep sigh. The other party's words were still ringing in his ears. Could it be that this time, the Xian continent was really doomed? Break through you head-on. Defeat you with my own hands. Gu Han muttered to himself, thinking to himself, is this a challenge? Or was it a trap? But no matter which one it was, this battle was going to be extremely dangerous. Thinking back to Sasho Kitajima's words before he left, Gu Han could not help but say in his heart, good sword. Looking at Mei Xuan, a strange light flashed in Gu Han's eyes. Right now, he had finally discovered some clues. Could it be that this sword attacked on its own, and was not controlled by someone? If that was not the case, with just Mei Xuan, how would she be able to stop Sasho Kitajima? Not to mention that she was able to fight evenly with Sasho Kitajima from a distance. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.